afternoon. I trust it was a hearty lunch for everyone. And joining our participants who are outside the mini theater to please join us inside. We will start in a few minutes. For those of you taking photos and would like to share it with our CUR team, please don't forget to use the hashtag UMakRC2023. Once again, that's UMak hashtag UMak20. See, I totally made a mistake there. Rejections are part of life, and so are mistakes. So, hashtag UMakRC2023. I did that right, correct? Thank you. Right, so good afternoon once again. This is the afternoon session of the 6th Research Congress. So how about a little stretch from everyone, because it's going to be another hefty Maids of that Matter afternoon. So before I call on our first speaker for the afternoon, inviting everybody to kindly do a nice big stretch. I know you're seated. Just pretend that you're reaching the ceiling. Get those muscles up. You can stand if you want to, but being seated is fine too. Stretch it upwards, to the sides, and then put it down. Put your hands together, put it under your chin. Slowly stretch it upwards, slowly, ever so slowly. There you go. Feel those muscles stretching. Reach it upwards again. On your head, and slowly, slowly put it up. Pull your head downwards, just a little slowly. Don't do a sudden jerk. All right. Shoulders, move it forward. Rotate it. You can put your hands on top of your shoulders, but if you don't want to, that's all right. 5, 6, 7, 8. Backwards this time. Rotate it backwards. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. Shake it off. Feels good, right? Feels good. And hopefully it mentally prepares you for the afternoon. And on that note, I would like to call this afternoon's rapporteur. We'll be having with us Professor Junlor C. Daksaf, faculty of the HSU UMak and member of UMREC. Let's give him a warm round of applause.
Buenos días con todo, señores y señoras. Mi nombre Junlor Daksa. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed faculty, guest speakers, administrators, and students, I am delighted to present an insightful discussions by our guest speakers in the morning at the 6th Research Congress, which is themed Achieving Global Excellence Through Institutional Synergy. My presentation will encompass the key takeaways from the speakers' presentations, reflecting on their significance and relevance to the academic endeavors of our university. The 6th Research Congress brought together esteemed guest speakers to discuss various facets of research and its impact on the academic endeavor of our university. The following synthesis encapsulates the key points from the guest speakers' presentations and how they relate to this theme. Dr. Demetrio emphasized the importance of heritage studies as a means to preserve and understand cultural and historical elements. He argued that the heritage studies are essential because they document tangible and intangible aspects that are under threat due to the passage of time and societal changes. Heritage research enhances our appreciation of our cultural legacy and contributes to research-driven policies. He also highlighted the relevance of heritage studies in education as it can enrich the content of the academic subjects and serve as excellent material for student research projects. The documentation of local heritage can lead to the conceptualization of a national heritage, make it an essential component of our cultural identity. Dr. Demetrios' research on church facades in the Diocese of Maasin further demonstrated how local research can contribute to national discourse, challenging preconceived notions about Filipino-Spanish churches and highlighting the importance of regional and local research in contributing to our understanding of national heritage. Ms. Felipe Dimog shared her experiences in research, shedding light on the challenges or challenging journey from the inception of a research idea to the ultimate submission of a paper for publication. In her enlightening discussion, she placed a significant emphasis that permeate the research process. These ethical concerns are essential to maintain the integrity and credibility of research. Ms. Felipe Dimog's presentation illuminated the fact that publishing research is far from a straightforward or linear path. One of the prevalent challenges she underscored in the common occurrence of the paper or paper rejection within the realm of academic publishing. Such rejections, she noted, are an inherent part of the process of bringing impactful research to light. They should not be seen as failures, but rather as opportunities for growth and improvement. The key takeaway from her presentation, driven home with utmost clarity, is the vital role of persistence in a researcher's journey. Researchers encounter numerous obstacles along the way, and Ms. Felipe Dimog's wisdom serves as a reminder that persistence is not merely a desirable trait, but an absolute necessity. It is the fuel that keeps the research engine running, enabling researchers to surmount the hurdles, both ethical and procedural, that they may face. Moreover, the awareness of the presence of predatory publications online is paramount. These unscrupulous sources aim to exploit the research community, tarnishing its reputation. Ms. Felipe Dimog's insights underscore the importance of vigilance in distinguishing credible publishing outlets from predatory ones. Her cautionary note reinforces the ethical imperative of ensuring that research findings reach the appropriate and deserving audiences. The lengthy and often intricate ethical review process is another aspect of research that Ms. Felipe Dimog highlighted. This process, while essential, may take several years or months to navigate. It underscores the importance of adhering to rigorous ethical standards in research. While it may be arduous, it ensures that research is conducted with the highest level of integrity and consideration for human subjects, thus safeguarding the well-being of those involved in the research. Ms. Felipe Dimog's presentation served as a poignant reminder of the ethical considerations that underpin research and the inevitability of facing rejection in the pursuit of publishing impactful papers. It encourages us to approach rejection as stepping stones toward refining our work and reinforces the enduring importance of persistence in the realm of academic research. Engineer Prospero discussed the process of writing a research proposal, outlining steps such as identifying a research topic, conducting a literature review, defining a research problem, formulating research objectives, designing research methodology, and addressing potential challenges. He emphasized the need to write proposals from the perspective of reviewers, ensuring that the research is doable and worth pursuing. Additionally, Engineer Prospero shared common reasons for proposal rejection and provided valuable tips for successful proposal writing, including knowing the target audience, avoiding excessive technical jargon, and editing meticulously. In conclusion, the guest speakers at the 6th Research Congress highlighted the diverse facets of research, its importance, and the challenges researchers face. These discussions emphasize the role of research in preserving heritage, disseminating vital knowledge, and writing effective research proposals. It is clear that research is a vehicle toward achieving global excellence in education. The impact of these topics on the academic endeavor of our university is significant. Heritage studies, as discussed, can enrich the curriculum, making learning more tangible and relevant to our students. Ms. Felipe Dimog's presentation underscores the persistence and ethical considerations required for research dissemination. Finally, Engineer Prospero's insights on research proposal writing will help the university's researchers create meaningful and impactful projects. The 6th Research Congress has provided a platform for learning, collaboration, and reflection, highlighting the vital role of research in the university's pursuits of academic excellence and its contribution to the global academic community. Muchas gracias, amigos y amigas, para sus presencia. And let us continue to strive for excellence through research and collaboration. Hasta la vista.
Thank you, Professor Daxa, for that comprehensive synthesis. And indeed, research will be the vehicle, or one of the vehicles, or primary vehicles, should we say, for global excellence. Thank you for putting all those together, and for also entertaining us with the Spanish twist. I think we'll have more of that later on in the show, or later on in the program. Also, we were fortunate enough, I guess, to add to the synthesis of Professor Daxa, we were also fortunate to have with us together for lunchtime, Engineer Prospero to eat, to have lunch with him. And remember, he did ask if we have these tools. Do we have Turnitin? Do we have Killbot? Do we have, am I missing something? Grammarly. And we're very happy to inform him during lunchtime that we do have those. And the university is very fortunate that we are supported in these things to also enable us to do research better. Engineer Prosper also talked about how back in his day, since he's a baby boomer, he would have to physically go to the library. And you don't have to do that physically this time, right? You have the internet with you. And better yet, the university also provides support through the university library, which you can access online. So may we also see our friends from the library give a little wave there. I see Sir Mel here, Sir Michael's over here. So we're actually able to access all of these online to enable you to do your research better and faster. All right, so let's proceed to the next speaker. He is a global leader in health research. He has been at the helm in the development of health research systems of many countries, particularly in Africa and Asia, where he has extensively traveled to advise governments and universities. He is considered to be one of the thought leaders in global health, having published 340 scientific papers, book chapters, and reports, and having spoken in global health conferences in 150 countries. He finished his PhD at Cardiff University, MPH, at the Royal Tropical Institute in Amsterdam, MSc in Health Economics Policy and Law in Global Health at Erasmus University in Rotterdam, the Netherlands, and his BSc Psychology cum laude and Doctor of Medicine from the University of the Philippines. His global work has been recognized through many awards he has received, including the Outstanding Young Man of the Philippines in 2009 and the Distinguished Alumni Award of the Alumni Award of the University of the Philippines back in 2011. Currently, he is the Editor-in-Chief of Public Health Challenges of Wiley and is the Deputy Editor-in-Chief of BMC Global Health Research and Policy. The latter is a Q1 journal and is one of the top journals in global health and health policy with an impact factor of 8.7. He teaches economics of global health policy at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine and International Health at the University of the Philippines Open University. He was recently a visiting scientist at Harvard University and holds adjunct and visiting professorship at Mahidol University, University of Botswana, Cardiff University, Wuhan University, Naresuan University, I hope I'm pronouncing these right, Astana Medical University, and Taipei Medical University. Please help me welcome Dr. Don Eliseo Lucero, Priestnode III.
Presentation on navigating world university rankings. What we're going to discuss today is what are the bodies that do university rankings, how do we get ranked, and what are the advantages on why should we get ranked, and what are the different strategies in order, for example, for the University of Makati to be highly ranked, and what are its advantages. First of all, I am Don. I am the Editor-in-Chief of Public Health Challenges, which is a journal of Wiley. It's a very popular journal, even if it's new, just more than a year.
Thank you for your patience as we work on some technical difficulties. There we go.
I am Don. I am the editor-in-chief of Public Health Challenges, which is a journal of Wiley. It's a very popular journal, even if it's new, just more than a year. And I'm also the deputy editor-in-chief of Global Health Research and Policy of BMC, which is one of the top journals in the world in the field of health. It is number 11 out of 344. I am mentioning this because journals and scientific publications are related to what we will be discussing. And of course, I'm very happy to work with you if you're interested in publications, in publishing. And I would encourage even the younger people, the students, to start publishing at a very young age. And so, what is an excellent university? There are so many reasons, there are so many descriptions of what a good university is. Normally, they would say it's highly ranked nationally and globally, and they have modern and advanced infrastructure and facilities. There is high quality teaching and excellent faculty members. They attract smart students, and so they have graduates who contribute to the society immensely. And so therefore, it contributes to the development of the country and beyond. For example, the COVID-19 vaccines were developed by actually many universities, including Oxford. And then there's the international outlook because the world is always interrelated. There is a strong knowledge transfer. That's why there's a good partnership between the university, research, and the industry. New products come out, new technologies come out from the research within a university, and thus has a world-class and impactful research. So this is the way we see these universities. Thus, they are good or they are excellent. We have in mind what are the top universities of the world because we always hear from them. And this is validated by the different ranking bodies such as Times Higher Education, QS, and the Shanghai ranking. And you will see the similarities of the top 10 universities of the world, which are the latest surveys, the latest being brought out in terms of the ranking of these universities. We have the usual institutions such as Harvard, Cambridge, Oxford, which are always in the top 10 of the best universities of the world in whatever ranking we use. In the Philippines, we always have the top universities, which would always be either Ateneo, University of the Philippines, De La Salle, Mapua, University of Santo Tomas, and a few other universities. And this is ranked by the Times Higher Education. This is in 2023, and this one is in 2024. The same institutions, however, there were 4 new institutions that were added, and I'm very happy to see 2 from Region 8. You have University of Eastern Philippines and the Visayas State University, which has already been there also in last year. Across the years, we are seeing a number of Philippine universities being ranked. It started just with UP in 2019. And then De La Salle came in with the Times Higher Education World University Ranking. Ateneo de Manila came in 2022. And then in 2023, 10 universities were ranked, and some were included from Mindanao. And now in 2024, there are 14 universities. And this is somewhat a good news that there's an increasing number of universities being ranked by this ranking body. Now, why is ranking very important? It is important because, for example, in China, the government has a white paper on getting their universities at a very high rank because the country wants to be a soft power in education. Many universities in the West would accept so many students from China. And these are the usual countries such as the US, Europe, European countries, Australia, Canada, where many of the foreign students from India and China would go. And China wants to become the country where many of the world's students would come from. And of course, the influence of such would really have a big ripple effect in terms of being a power in education and influencer of ideas. And so they have been investing much on their universities so that they will be ranked highly. And they have their own way of ranking them, and that's the Shanghai ranking. Now, these are the common ranking bodies which we always hear about. You have the Center for World University Rankings, you have the WURI, you have the US News, Best Global Universities, Webometrics, you have Shanghai Ranking, and of course, Times Higher Education, QS, and the Times Higher Education Impact Rankings. Let's go through this one by one. Now, in terms of ranking, you will see the Times Higher Education for the latest ranking considered 1,799 universities out of more than 2,500 universities worldwide. QS ranked 1,500 out of 5,500. So there's a big number that was considered. And look at the data source partner for these institutions. You have Scopus and you have Scopus. For the CWR, it ranked 2,000 out of 20,000 universities worldwide. This time, they used Clarivate. So this is very telling of the different databases that these university ranking bodies use. Now, for the academic ranking of world universities or the Shanghai ranking, they only rank the best 1,000 out of 2,500 universities. And then you have the Clarivate, which rank, and it uses Clarivate. The US universities use 1,500 out of the 1,748. It also uses Clarivate. Well, the WURI is actually the least, it has very few universities which joins in the ranking. And so probably it's not the most credible because it does not cover so many universities. It only covers those who wish to join. And so it is very important that we know which databases that these ranking bodies use. Now, for Times Higher Education, the criteria by which you will be included in the World University Ranking, you have to be teaching at an undergraduate level, at least 1,000 relevant publications in the past 5 years, and 150 each year, and less than 80% research in one single subject, meaning it's not being dominated by one subject. And of course, you have to have submissions. So if one university is already ranked by Times Higher Education, it means it's already a good honor for that university because they reach the minimum requirement, even if they are just at the reporter level. Now, Times Higher Education would use 29.5% on teaching. That means academic quality of the university. Research is very important. So this is where Scopus would come in. Research quality in terms of citation. So you will see that it is very much heavy on research. It's beyond 50%. And then the industry innovations and inventions, and then the international outlook. So this can be taken from the data that you will be submitting, the number of international students, and the number of foreign faculty members within the university. So again, I have to emphasize here, research environment and research quality. So in these other criteria which they use, again, you will see that this was the previous year. Again, they were very much heavy on the research and the citations, though they lessened it a bit in 2024. And then teaching was also lessened, and then the other criteria that has been used. So here, citations is very, very important, or the research influence. For the Shanghai ranking, or academic ranking of world universities, this time they use Clarivate database, which is that of Web of Science. So yeah, the percentage of SCIE papers and SSCI papers, these are the databases of the Web of Science, and the Nature and Science papers, which carry a very big heavyweight. And this is for the Greater China rankings. Now, for the World University rankings for all the universities, again, they have the highly cited researchers in 21 broad subjects. So that's 20%, and that's quite heavy. And then the papers on the citations of the papers on nature and the SCI and SSCI papers, which are all of Clarivate. And so these for the World University ranking. Times Higher Education also produces the impact ranking, which is related to the SDGs. And here they would consider 3 SDGs plus 17, and then they will rank the different universities based again on the Elsevier Scopus database, which they will use for the ranking of these different subject areas. Now for the QS ranking, again, you will see that citations per faculty is being considered. So that is for the research. And then you have the academic reputation, employer reputation, which is being done by through surveys that the world ranking body would use. And then the international faculty and international student ratio. So pretty much it still has similarity with that of the Times Higher Education ranking, and they would use the same database, which is Scopus. And the survey, you will receive it. You can join it, and it will go to your email. They would collect all the emails of many academics globally. That's from the submissions with when you submit papers, and then they will send you the survey for the QS Global Academic Survey to look at the reputation and of these institutions. They will send it to thousands of emails. However, the number that would come out, they are not very transparent with that because it's not really a big number that would come back in terms of response rate. Now, QS has different products. You have the QS University rankings by region. So you have Asia, Latin America, the Arab region. And then you have the QS stars rating, which is what many of the universities in the Philippines would be given stars. For example, 3-star, 4-star, 5-star, or 5+ stars. This is where we mostly join, but you have to pay for it to be able to get the stars, and these being highlighted by many institutions. Remember that these ranking bodies are actually the ones I mentioned earlier are businesses. So they are not nonprofits. They are businesses where there is a business model on what they are doing. They would also rank MBA programs so that those who want to do MBA would know which ones are the good ranking, which ones are the good universities on this. So for example, in the Philippines, those who got the QS stars are 29 Philippine universities. And these were the ones who were paid for by CHED or the private institutions. They were willing to pay for this, for the stars. And University of Santo Tomas got one of the highest stars, which is 5+, and that's a very good star, meaning it has perfected in all the criteria that the QS star ranking would get. And then so the number would depend really on your membership or on your payment to get the QS stars. Now, the worry is something which is you'll be hearing around because a number of Philippine universities have been joining this. So the worry is done by an organization. And this one does not use research, but it is an alternative which evaluates the real contribution, according to them, to the society, but by looking at 6 categories: industrial application, value creating, social responsibility, ethics and integrity, student mobility and openness, crisis management, and progress during the 4th Industrial Revolution. You have to have submissions, and then there will be judging by peers who are also the members of the organizations and universities who are members, and then you will be peer reviewed. And for their 2024 framework, they're using 13 categories. which are divided among this, and that is how they came up with their framework on evaluation of universities. And for the ranking web of universities, they have a different method. It's not about websites, but it's your presence on the net. Again, you will see similarities of the university's rank in terms of webometrics. You still have Harvard there, Stanford, MIT, Oxford, and the same top 10 universities. And most of these universities are in the US and Europe. So their criteria is looking at the different websites, for example, the bibliometric indicators, and many other indicators that are online. And then they have a very unique way of doing their metrics when it comes to the ranking. Then there is the U.S. World Report, U.S. News World Report. They have now done their global universities ranking, and again, you will see that the number of publications that are among the 10% most cited is very heavy, 12.5%. Total publications, 10%. Again, research here comes out as very high in this ranking body. So global research reputation, regional research reputation, number of publications, percentage of publications. For their best universities, you have again Harvard, MIT, Stanford, Berkeley, Oxford. So you see similar universities being ranked by these ranking bodies. For the CWUR, again, you have the same bodies that are being ranked. You have Harvard, MIT, Stanford, Cambridge, Oxford, Princeton, University of Chicago. Always in the top of the universities ranked globally. So their methodology is, again, here is education, 25%, employability, 25%, faculty, 10%, those with prestigious academic distinctions, and research is also quite heavy, which is 40%. And they would use, again, Clarivate for their research database. And for the WURI, again, I mentioned earlier, it's about innovativeness, implementability, and impact. Now, what I have been doing with my research work, I have been working with a lot of African countries. And based on the heavy research work that we have done with many African countries, we have noticed that in some publications, we were able to bring these universities up in the ranking. For example, we produced hundreds of papers on COVID during the pandemic, and we were able to bring the universities high up in the ranking. These based on the work that we do in Africa. So thus proving that doing a lot of research and having your university affiliations on it increases the ranking of the university. And so when it comes to the top cited scientists in the Philippines, I would see a correlation of those who are publishing with the Scopus, and they are mostly from the University of the Philippines, Manila, which if we separate all the units of the universities in the Philippines, I would surmise, and I'm very sure that UP Manila is the highest producer of researchers in the Philippines. So these are the top cited scientists in the Philippines in 2023. And we would see here that most of the papers, the citations would come from papers from UP Manila, 9 of them, then UP Diliman, and then De La Salle and Ateneo de Manila University. Thus, this is highly correlated with the ranking of the universities, which I just mentioned. Now, what is good is that there are other upcoming universities which is correlated with the previous university that I mentioned when it comes to ranking. So therefore, I can make a very safe conclusion that research is really very strong in terms of the influence of the ranking of universities. Thus, you can say that the university is good or excellent. Now, there is the Google Scholar, which I would like to mention, and then this indexing organization would rank the scientists and universities within that institute in many different countries. However, this is a bit simplistic because they use Google Scholar, so thus it covers all the publications being collected by Google. And then they convert it into an AD scientific index. So if you have a Google Scholar, for example, my director for research and thought leadership at Global Health Focus, the organization which I work with globally with many researchers all over the world. This is his H index, his Google Scholar account. And the citations H index and I-10 H index are the ones being scanned by AD index. So more or less, this is a good gauge of the production of research of universities. So if you click on the institution, you will notice the research output of that university through the Google Scholar. And so just to explain, the I-10 index is the number of publications with at least 10 citations. So if you have 25, that means you have 25 papers with more than 10 citations, and that is already very good. Now, as I mentioned, if we produce a lot of papers, publications, research outputs, there is a high correlation between quantity and quality. As you keep on producing, quantity increases. And of course, there's always a fight between Scopus and Clarivate or Web of Science, where these databases are being used for researches such as bibliometric analysis, systematic reviews, and this is where these papers are being published in journals, which are also indexed by these databases, which is related to the number of citations in a number of papers. So this graph would show that normally papers are cited highly at 10, and there's so many of them, but there are exceptional papers which get very, very high citations. And there's actually a number of them, these papers. So I could name a number that will be the Global Burden of Diseases, which is published by Lancet all the time, and the Lancet Commission. So these are, I call them big papers. So this is how you're going to strategize as universities or as a researcher to get the high citations, which will feed to the ranking. And that is why, as a chief editor, I try to curate properly the papers that my journal will publish, and then I will refer the minor papers to the cascade journals or to the sister journals of the company where my journal is. So there is a different way of managing journals, and that would be a different workshop which I can handle for your university if you're interested in journal management. Now, talking about journals, you will see that the Philippines only has 24 Scopus journals, and that is very few for a very big country of 110 million people. And you will see that Singapore, with a small population, has 194 Scopus journals. Indonesia has 115, and what is also a bit challenging with this table that I'm showing you is that most of our journals are still Q4, meaning the state of science in the Philippines using the metrics of Scopus journals is still a bit, we still have a lot of things to do. Though, of course, here there are no journals from Myanmar, Laos, and Cambodia among the ASEAN countries. So, just this table, we can see that the scientific community of the Philippines has still to do a lot of things and really, really hard work in this area. And so these are the journals that are indexed by Scopus. You have the Q4, and we have four health journals. So therefore, if the ranking of the universities would use Scopus database, therefore, it is very important that we get many of our journals Scopus journals. Because if we dump many papers on our Scopus journals, that would mean that we will get more papers to Scopus database, and that will really keep on pushing many universities up in the ranking of universities. And unfortunately, when I emailed the Scopus advisory body to set up a Scopus advisory body in the Philippines, they emailed back that the Philippines is not a priority country for now by the Scopus which is owned by Elsevier. And it's a bit it's something which is biased because Scopus is actually owned by Elsevier, so they would prioritize their own journals when they have new ones. So therefore, my friends, in the short lecture that I gave you, I would like to convey a few conclusions. One, that universities should have a rationale in consciously joining ranking bodies. What will be your philosophy if you want to join this? You have to have a good understanding why you are joining. Two, universities should be cognizant of the rules and guidelines of the ranking bodies, because it is very important that they know their rules, they make their rules, we follow. It is not something very democratic. And so this is what I really want, that this ranking body should be more transparent, and that research is a main criterion in the ranking and should be a major focus of the universities. And so I have many workshops on this, whether it's journal management towards Scopus ranking or Scopus indexing, having more publications on research, being an intensive university. We can dissect all of this. In fact, this lecture, I would deliver this in 2 days. If your university wants to have a very good discussion on this, and I'll be happy to go to your university. And so research should be intensive, and universities should be research intensive, and teaching should be research-led teaching and research-based teaching. And of course, universities should have strategies hinged on impact and efficiency. So what do I mean by efficiency? Your faculty members are already overstretched in terms of teaching. So therefore, you should not overburden them, yet they should have a lot of outputs in terms of research by having many strategies. So thank you very much for letting me speak before you in this conference. This just a quick snapshot on navigating world university ranking. And of course, if you are interested in having journals which are highly citable, you have to understand also the journal impact factor. And this is my email and my WhatsApp and my phone number. So if you're interested to contact me, I will be very happy to have workshops with you in your universities, with your whole faculty members, to get your university research intensive and highly ranked, so you can make more impact to the country, to the world, and of course, so that you will get more research funding from the research bodies. And of course, it will always be a good legacy for your university and for your country. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you very much to Dr. Don Eliseo Lucero Prisno III. I hope you got his contact details because if we do have questions or if we want him to expound more on the world rankings, I'm sure he would be delighted to hear from you. But just in case you didn't catch his contact details, our CUR team would be more than happy to get those questions from you and deliver it to him. So thank you very much once again to Sir Don. At this point, we'd like to recognize and thank also the 250 online viewers that we have. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Also recognizing our Director for Library Learning Commons, Ma'am Jen, thank you for being with us this afternoon. And we will now proceed to just a quick check on, sorry. Oh, correct. Thank you. So though Dr. Don Priestno will receive this online, we still would like to proceed with the issuance of certificate, requesting Professor De Los Santos once again to join us on stage. Oh, sorry, that's correct. Okay, hold on, sir. On his behalf, we would like to recognize Mr. Jericho Ogaya, Research Assistant for Global Health Focus, to accept the certificate on behalf of Dr. Don Eliseo Lucero Prisno III. The certificate reads, the certificate is presented to Don Eliseo Lucero Prisno III for the invaluable knowledge imparted as resource speaker during the 6th Research Congress with the theme Achieving Global Excellence through Institutional Synergy, conducted October 11 and 12 at the University of Makati, given this 11th day of October 2023. Signed, Alexor C. Ramos, PhD Sese, Florante E. De Los Santos, RGC, and Maria Faye Ninette M. Carriaga, RPH, MSPH, and PhD. Thank you once again. So, checking with our tech team as all right, so we will proceed now to the next speaker. I believe in your program, you received that it's our Vice President for Planning and Research, Dr. Faye Ninette M. Carriaga, who will deliver the next part of the program. However, due to something very crucial at the moment, in her stead, we will instead first have a different speaker. So just checking if he is ready and if the tech team is ready to assist him as well. And I think it's all systems go. So please allow me to introduce him. He is a human rights advocate. He was a faculty and coordinator for research at iAcademy Senior High School. He is now with the Center for University Research at the University of Makati. He finished his Master of Arts in Philosophy in 2016 at the University of the Philippines, Diliman. As a member of the Philosophical Association of the Philippines and Community Development Society of the Philippines, his areas of expertise are socio-political philosophy, community development engagement, and gender study. Let's welcome our very own Mr. Vincent Barcelona.
Thank you very much, Ms. Camille. Let me just prepare my things here. Buenos dias a todo. Buongiorno a tutti. Hao. Oh, Hao pala. Sa mapagpalayang araw sa ating lahat, habang hinahanda ko lamang po ang aking presentation, magpahinga muna po tayo ng onte. Tayo lamang po.
Right, so to give the tech team and our next speaker a few minutes to work on what they need to arrange, just would like to invite everyone and remind everyone that after our talk this afternoon, we do have coffee and snacks to be served. So do stay still outside the mini theater and do enjoy with us. Thank you.
I think my presentation is ready. Again, good afternoon to each and everyone. I think I'm introduced already, so I don't want to repeat all those things. So, the World Health Organization Director concurs with the advice offered by the committee regarding the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. He determines that COVID-19 is now an established and ongoing health issue which no longer constitutes a public health emergency of international concern. This was the statement of World Health Organization Director released in May 5, 2023, and that signals the end of the pandemic. The reasons given by the World Health Organization, more specifically by the Health Regulations Emergency Committee, which was also released the day before, that's May 4, 2023, is that, number one, there is already a decreasing trend in deaths brought by the said virus. Number two, there is a decline in hospitalizations and intensive care units admissions. And number three, and most of all, due to the speedy response in producing vaccines against it, there's already high level of population immunity. Following that, that's 2 months after, the Malacanang issued Proclamation 297, Series of 2023, which lifts the state of public health emergency throughout the Philippines due to COVID-19. So, by July 22, 2023, COVID-19 pandemic ends here in the Philippines. Of course, there are still cases of hospitalizations due to COVID-19, but we can be assured that the pandemic is not anymore here in the Philippines. But we have to understand that due to that pandemic, socio-economic turmoils happened in our country. And therefore, the 6th University Research Congress this year and the upcoming issues of our official research journal, namely Universitas, which coincided with the 50th founding of the University of Makati called on to our researchers to explore research topics that exemplifies our theme, achieving global excellence through institutional synergy. The bridging of the previous year's Research Congress and Universitas to this year's theme is in order, therefore, and that is given to me. So, maraming salamat, Ma'am Cariaga, for putting me on spot today. Anyway, the objectives of my presentation, which is supposed to be tomorrow, will be the following. And it's supposed to be an overview of what will be the papers to be presented tomorrow. Anyway, the paper, my paper, which will be hopefully published for this Universitas, asks the following question. What were the lessons learned in the previous Congress and journal issue that are applicable for this year's event and issue? Number 2, what are the lessons, on the other hand, that the papers being presented at least in the 6th Research Congress, namely today, enforce those lessons from the previous ones? Number 3, with the recognition that the country and its people are still rearing from the heightened volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, in other words, VUCA situation, brought by the COVID-19 pandemic, what are the specific lessons which the researchers presenting in this 6th Research Congress advocate to ensure that our institution, namely the University of Makati, will be catapulted to global excellence? Finally, I would ask, what else needs to be explored that needs institutional synergy? Again, our theme is institutional synergy. So, the paper's methodology is to analyze the September and November issue of Universitas 2022 alongside the papers that will be presented in the 6th Research Congress. It uses content analysis and deductive analysis for qualitative research. For deductive analysis, I based the analysis of the papers, I've said before, from what are the aspects of tertiary education. And if you are a professor in a university or in a college, we all know that the aspects of a tertiary education would be academics, research, extension, administration, and what's the other one? And that one. And then the 5 social institutions. We'll go to this later on. If we now go to the sample, namely the literature at hand, namely the papers from previous publication, namely Universitas 2022, will find this. The September issue has 7 papers tackling academics. It has 1 paper tackling topics beyond UMak community. No papers tackled student life. Ayun pala yung hindi ko nasabi kanina. Community extension, research, and administration. So, yan po. On the other hand, the November issue has 5 papers tackling academics. It has 2 papers tackling student life and 1 paper tackling extension. It has 2 papers tackling topics beyond UMak community. All in all, therefore, both issues had 12 papers tackling academics, 2 papers tackling student life, 1 paper tackling extension, 3 papers tackling beyond the UMak community. Neither issues tackled administration nor research. And we are hoping, actually, that when we were haggling last January for the topics for this Congress, we were hoping actually that all these will be covered this year. However, wala yatang nagsulat. Okay. Anyway, let's go to the other sample. For this year's Congress, at least for this research Congress, not the Universitas, um, we have 12 papers. Okay? 5 are about academics, 1 for student life, and none for extension, administration, and research. Moreover, the papers for this year's Congress tackled issues beyond UMak, almost covering the 6 basic social institutions of government, health, economy, family, religion, and education. So if we're going to look at the basic institutions of the society which has papers for this 6th Congress, we can see that we have 2 papers that will be tackling government, 2 papers that will be tackling health, 2 papers tackling economy, 1 for religion, and 1 for education. Comparing it now to Universitas 2022, November issue has 1 government paper, 1 paper about the government, 1 for the September issue has 1 health paper, 1 economy paper for November issue, none for family, none for religion, and if we will count the papers tackling issues within UMak, academics and student life, we have about 15 papers tackling education. So if you are, if you have taken K to 12, if you graduated senior high school, for those students here, you know that there are 5 basic social institutions, and those are the 5 basic social institutions. Okay, and if we want to research on topics that matter to the society, we have to look into those institutions, social institutions. Anyway, now let's look back on the papers on the September and November issues of Universitas. The following lessons could be drawn in terms of achieving global excellence through institutional synergy. According to these papers from the previous issues, number 1, there's a need for institutional rethinking regarding the following aspects of UMak, as shown lately. 1, academics. 2, student life. 3, extension. Number 2, there's a need for institutional collaboration beyond UMak on the following issues. 1, combating fake news. 2, creating spaces for dialogue and understanding. And 3, creating livelihood opportunities in the digital age. Let's go to synergy in UMak. Okay, let's go back to that. First, institutional synergy was explored last year as contextualized in UMak community in the paper's last academic year. As an institution, through the aspects of academics, student life, and community extension. Nonetheless, one can say that the research and administrative management aspects of UMak as a tertiary education institution may still need to be investigated. This paper will circle back to this point later on. Focusing now on topics within UMak's higher education aspects of academic, student life, and extension, let's go to the first topic of rethinking academics. On academics, it could be argued that both issues, September and November last year, after extensive data collection and analysis, recommended for better involvement of technology in teaching, learning, design of university. PINGOL 2023 particularly highlighted how UMak's very own technology-based hub helped during the pandemic in ensuring the delivery of learning materials to UMak students, specifically for asynchronous classes. With the option of having virtual classrooms through Zoom and other such platforms for synchronous online classes, other papers explored how teaching learning methodologies, assessments, and even internships may be done despite the situation the university is in during those trying times. Of course, the papers of Ocampo et al. 2022 and Mendoza 2022 may have pointed out that those courses that need actual in-person or face-to-face guidance from the teachers suffered due to the virtual setup in classroom instruction and internship. Moreover, these gave an opportunity for members of the academic community to go back to the drawing board and reassess the university's curriculum in the aspects of content delivery, teaching, learning environment design, and assessment. This lesson brought by the need to ensure that UMak stands true to its mandate as an educational institution can be hailed back to tackle present socio-political, socio-economic, and socio-cultural climate that the subtopics of this sixth Congress aims to address, namely AI and academic integrity, computer-assisted education, true and false information on social media, cultural integration tourism, accounting ethics, hospitality ethics, sexual health and people's awareness and involvement, indigenous psychology and health practices, sexual orientation, gender identity and expression transcending heteronormativity, communication in heterogeneous and pluralistic society, and social justice education and advocacy. Let's rethink student life. On student life, the November issue of Universitas tackled how the support services of the university could be relevant on the needs of their students in cooperation with their parents during those trying times of the pandemic. These were exemplified by the papers of Deakin et al. I hope I didn't pronounce it wrong. Alinas et al. 2022 and Medina 2022. We'll go back to her paper later on. With the remote classes set up, cooped up in their homes during the lockdowns during the pandemic, the papers of the group of Deakin and the group of Alinas suggests that UMak enhance their student services on ensuring not just academic performance of the students, but most of all, their mental health. The paper of Alinas et al. 2022 emphasized how mental health problems affect the academic performance of the students, and that working with their parents is very, very important. Let's go now to Medina's paper. On the other hand, in terms of student organization activities, Medina's paper exemplifies the importance of documenting activities of student organizations, especially in the performing arts. Documentation serves as a way for future activities to determine how their student organizers will innovate. This rethinking of student life can be applied to the topics proposed for this sixth Congress, namely AI and academic integrity with the proliferation of AI-generated arts, cybersecurity with the danger of cybercrime that prowls on the youth, true and false information on social media, specifically on the concern of cyberbullying, sexual health and people's awareness with the continual problem of STD, STI, and HIV/AIDS infection, mental health and services accessibility with the social media as one of the stressors and causes of mental health problems of the youth of today, among other triggers, children's rights in reinforcing the students' appreciation of their worth, youth mobilization for nation building in helping student organizations be socially relevant in the society where they live in, which leads to the need for integration of social justice education and advocacy among student organizations, which also leads to the tackling of sexual orientation, gender identity and expression, or SOGI, transcending heteronormativity, in ensuring that UMak is really inclusive and hence a safe space for all, which also leads to the tackling of violence against women and children and the appreciation of women's movement, and leading to instilling in law students organizations on how to be lawyers in the fringes of the society, and in terms of artistic organizations, on how they will be able to highlight local stories and the creation of community identity. Let's talk about community extension. On the community extension, the November issue last year highlighted through the paper of Faustino how UMak extension program was able to synergize with the other Makati LGUs to implement its community development work programs even during the pandemic. The paper highlighted the importance of institutionalizing volunteerism or otherwise encouraging it to LGU staff. This recalls for all of us civil servants our oath. And let me read it for the students here. Maglilingkod ako ng may malasakit, katapatan at kahusayan na walang kinikilingan. Magiging mabuting halimbawa ako at magbibigay ng pag-asa at inspirasyon sa aking kapwa, lingkod, bayan. End of quote. This lesson still applies to how UMak as an educational institution could ensure that its community extension program be relevant to its community partners and its volunteers. The subtopics of the 6th Research Congress, however, calls for the following community extension-related topics that may need to be explored more to ensure that other than sustainability, the community development projects have real impact to the partner communities. And I am actually happy when I attended COA's Research Congress last time that some of the papers and capstone projects there was really impactful for our less fortunate communities, especially the Makativille in Laguna. I think that's the place. So here are some topics that can still be explored. Number 1, heritage, history, and social justice for COE, CHK, CAL, CGPP, HSU, CCAPS, and SOL. More specifically, issue-based community development work or advocacies, people's participation and mobilization in community development, children's rights and policy making, youth mobilization for nation building, democratic governance and local government, malapit na pong eleksyon, barangay eleksyon, lawyers in the fringes of society, social justice, education, and advocacy. Needs-based and rights-based CSR for CTHM, CBFS, and IOA. Holistic health services for IOP, ION, and COS. Let's now go beyond UMak. As has been pointed out lately, there were only 2 papers published last year that tackled topics beyond UMak. One was a situationer on vaccine acceptance amidst misinformation and disinformation in the field of health institutions. Another one on creating spaces for understanding beyond religion in the field of the government and religious institutions, and another one creating opportunities for livelihood through social media. Let's talk about synergy against fake news. De las Armas and Espiritu tackled social media COVID-19 vaccine hesitancy as scoping review. One of the realities that everyone faced during the pandemic is the proliferation of misinformation and disinformation or fake news on the vaccines. The scoping review authored by De las Armas the 4th and Espiritu in last year's September issue called for a discussion among sectors of the society to counter this reality. This needs for synergy of sectors of the society, therefore, to ensure this new and present situation connects now to the themes of the present Research Congress, specifically true and false information on social media. Number 2, communication in a heterogeneous and pluralistic society. If you want to know what heterogeneous means or pluralism, you may ask that later on the Q&A. Thank you. Let's go to another topic of beyond UMak, which was tackled last September issue of Universitas. Synergy on creating spaces of understanding beyond religion. On a positive note, even if the separation of church and state is an inviolable constitutional provision, it can be an opportunity to build synergy for interfaith dialogue and understanding. A safe space can be created, therefore. This is what the paper of Panis and De Los Santos, our director, published in the November issue last year and was able to establish tackling how the Philippine Coast Guard was able to create a space of interfaith dialogue. You can ask him later on the details of his paper. It's really good. This lesson applies to this year's Congress's topics for COE, CHK, CALS, HSU, CCAPS, and SOL. Local stories and creation of community identity and communication in a heterogeneous and pluralistic society. Let's talk about synergizing in creating livelihood opportunities through the social media. And let's talk about Adami et al. Another paper that focused on a positive topic last November issue was that emerging phenomenon in the economic institution of the society. It was the social media-driven sales. Adami and their team focused on Facebook as a marketing strategy for online sellers, specifically during the pandemic. Yun. Nabudol na ba kayo ng TikTok? Parang ganun yun. Yan. The lesson learned from their paper is applicable to the present Research Congress's main topic for CTHM, CBFS, and IOA, namely socioeconomic development. Moving on now, the lessons which the papers that will be presented today, namely tomorrow, which supports. To recall, there are 6 papers that took on the baton on discussing topics regarding UMak as a tertiary education institution. 5 papers discussed academics and 1 paper on student life. None were submitted on research extensions and administration. Synergy in UMak. Let's begin with this one. For the papers tomorrow, on the academics, 4 out of 5 papers will be presenting on the continuation of the exploration and how to make pedagogy better. Truly, the VUCA situation during the pandemic changed how teachers approach teaching learning design within the walls of the classroom or during the students' work immersion. Let's talk about synchronous and asynchronous teaching online. Diba? It's really different now. Synergizing beyond UMak. Regarding lessons for synergy beyond UMak, of the 6 papers submitted tackling this, only 1 continued the lesson from last year's Universitas issues to synergize in the social media for livelihood opportunities. I'm not anymore going to tell you the titles of the paper kasi those are the papers for tomorrow. But as been shown lately, there are new lessons on synergy. Let's talk about the present or the future. Synergy in UMak. On new lessons in synergy within UMak, specifically on academics, 1 paper will talk about how they explored the possibility of offering an elective on sign language. Given the chance that this will be implemented, and I'm happy for this because I'm a Filipino sign language interpreter myself, it will be the showcase of how our university will be continuing its goal to be a very inclusive university. Inclusive not just for Makatizens, as our beloved mayor said, not just for Makatizens, but also for non-Makatizens. And then now, inclusive for the PWDs, starting with the deaf students. Moreover, the new lessons will be coming from the papers that explored topics beyond UMak. As I've said, lately, more papers have been submitted for topics that tackle issues beyond the walls of UMak. First of all, one can say that there is a high probability that this Congress and the upcoming issue of the Universitas will have more papers tackling topics beyond UMak than the previous year with about 6 out of 12 papers, which is 50%. Second, the new emerging topics which these papers tackled. Number one, on government. One paper investigated the correlation between the communication style and the effective work performance of an LGU in the former Makati Barangay, Sembo, which is now, by virtue of the recent Supreme Court ruling, under the city of Taguig. One lesson explored how the synergy of UMak and LGUs in giving certificate courses in barangay justice administration and alternative resolution is effective. On economics, other than exploring how social media can be used for more income opportunities, one paper in this Congress assessed the impact of work from home setup, which became more popular during the pandemic. Let's talk about health. Acceptance of a certain diet which is espoused by a religion is explored this time. On the other hand, the synergy of health institutions and technology was also explored, specifically on how nurses could benefit on using electronic medical records. Let's talk about education and religion. Although religion was also explored last year, this Congress has a paper that if UMak itself will use, especially on its effort to be more inclusive now in terms of religion. One paper, which was also the same paper that explored the acceptability of certain diet espoused by a religion as a topic of health or on health, can also be used for reviewing our CTHM. Although the research context or the local is Taguig City. Di ko na lang po sasabihin kung sino yung authors noon. I think they are here. Oh, okay. Now let's talk about the gaps. What are... Oh, bumalik ako dun sa yeah. What are the topics of the Research Congress with no papers? So, on tertiary education, let's talk about research. Sayang sayang ito yung mga, mga topics na to. AI and academic integrity, prototype research. Now, let's talk about administration. Sayang din ito, sana merong nag-submit. Baka po may gustong humabol. Ayan. On administration, let's talk about total quality management. Baka po may nagsusulat na ng papel na yan. Baka naman po. Social institution. Let's talk about social institution, namely topics beyond UMak. Talk about family. Let's talk about SOGI, transcending heteronormativity. As a SOGI person, as an LGBTQIA+ person myself, I was waiting for papers about this. Sayang. Sexual health and people's awareness and involvement. Recently, I went to Makati Social Hygiene Clinic, and nakakabahala po ang mga balita tungkol sa sexually transmitted disease and HIV. Sayang. Violence against women and women's movement. Pandemic, became an opportunity for abusers. Diba? So, sayang. Baka naman po meron pa pong gusto mag-submit. Ayan po. Mental health and services accessibility. Of course, meron na pong nasulat about this, but how about family? How about the family? Okay. Let's talk about the topics of this Congress with papers, but yet to be explored more. On UMak, tertiary education, let's talk about academics, accounting ethics, hospitality ethics, true and false information on social media, social justice education, and advocacy. Wala rin pong mga nag-submit ng papers about this. We were also waiting for papers about AI. Sayang, wala pong nag-submit. Pero baka po may gustong pang humabol. Yan. Kaya lang baka magpagalitan kami ng UMREC. Ibang office na po pala ang UMREC. Okay. So, dadaan po kasi sa UMREC yung mga yung mga papers. So, teka naman. Yan. Okay. I think malapit na ako matapos. On this, let's talk about, more papers that are yet to be explored. Let's talk about student life. Youth mobilization for nation building, children's rights and policy making. Yan po. Wala pong nagsubmit ng mga papers na yan. Ay! Nawawala agad. Yan. Extension office. Ang liit pala, no? Teka lang. Iano ko. Labas ko muna lahat. Tapos, let me zoom it. Yeah. Okay. Local stories and creation of community identity, wala pong ano. Pero I'm excited po for the cultural mapping because we are hoping na sa universitas na lang sila magpapublish, hopefully. So this one I think would answer this gap. Asan pa ba? Cultural integration tourism, sustainability in the hospitality sector, needs-based and rights-based CSR, people's participation and mobilization in community development, issue-based community development work or advocacies, youth mobilization for nation building, lawyers in the fringes of the society, social justice, education, and advocacy. So, baka naman po meron pa po kayong natatagong papel na pwede nating i-publish this year. Yan. Deke naman po. Beyond UMak, let's talk about government. Labas ko muna po kasi I think, yan, hindi nyo mabasa. Masyado maliit pala, no, pag nandito. Yan, let's zoom it. Okay, for the government, we were waiting for CGPP siguro to give us papers for local stories and the creation of community identity, cultural integration, tourism. Part po kasi ng policy making din yun eh. Sustainability in the hospitality sector, needs-based and rights-based CSR, people's participation and mobilization. Wala dito yung democratic governance. I think hindi siya nalagay dyan. On economy, yan. Sustainability in the hospitality sector, tourism competitiveness, cultural integration in tourism, and accounting ethics, hospitality ethics. So, yan naman po. And that ends my presentation. Maraming salamat po. I am Vincent Barcelona from the Center for University Research. I hope you're enjoying your afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sir Vince. Please stay on stage. You are accommodating some questions, correct?
Yes, of course.
All right. So we do have a few more minutes for that. Once again, enjoining our audience from Facebook to please type in your question through the chat box, and our tech team would be more than happy to project them. But for our on-site audience, if you do have questions, we have microphones left, right, and center. And as added incentive, our CUR team would also be giving out bamboo USBs and pens. So courageous people out there who may have questions to ask. Thank you also, Sir Vince, for bridging our two previous Congress topics. I'm sorry, the previous Congress topic to the current Congress topics and identifying gaps or possible topics for research that we could all still consider. And in his own words, kung baka daw meron pang gusto humabol, because the topics that will be presented tomorrow are not necessarily the topics that will be included in the universitas. So those of us who still would like to write papers may do so. I think though, Sir Vince, for your point on TQM, which is under administration, if I am correct, there is somebody writing a paper on that.
Yes.
So, and perhaps you will hear more about it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right. So, do we have a questions online? Okay, none so far from online. How about our on-site audience? Do we have questions to ask Sir Vince? He did prod you earlier that if you want to know better the meaning of heterogeneous and plurality, he could expound on those. But of course, those don't have to be limited to those questions. Go
Yeah.
ahead. Please introduce yourselves in for the benefit of Sir
Yay, from
Vince.
COS. Tama no? Psychology, di ba? Tama. Tal pala, sorry. Sorry naman po.
And so, good afternoon, sir. I am Dexter Apinado from the College of Arts and Letters. So, based on your lecture, sir, no, I mean the topic you have presented, it mentioned those papers that was presented and published in universitas. No, this is not a question, but more of yung pag-up lang natin sa universitas. Kasi kami yung grupo namin talks about yung research paper namin for the Congress talks about the communication, taxonomy of communication strategies. And we also looking at the 2021 issue of the Universitas. May nag-discuss din ng code switching, which also part of the taxonomy for communication strategies. This is for the on-site and online viewers, or no? Where can we find Universitas for us to look for those topics that could really help us in the future venture of research?
Yay. Thank you very much for that question. And that's a good question because it's an opportunity for us to promote to everyone the visiting of our website. Okay? Kasi everything is already there. Okay? If you'll go to umak.edu.ph, there is on the upper right yata menu, research, click that one, and the drop-down box will give you some options. UMREC is also there. Then Research Center or Center for University Research has its own page. Click that one, and there is, if you can't find it on the upper part of our webpage, you can scroll down and look for the link to the digital copies of Universitas. There is a link to PEJ, Philippine e-journals. There's a link to our page in AG Andrew Gonzalez, Philippine Citation. Yeah, AGPCI. So, yeah, our journal has online presence. So, madali lang siyang hanapin. Yun. And in fact, if you go to Google Scholar and try to type UMak, you can also find that, Universitas is there. Yan. I think, did I answer your question? Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Vince, for pointing those out. And apart from the accessibility through website, and we have here Director Lee from CIC, who, along with his team, have ensured that we can access those online. As mentioned earlier, also we can access these through Odelo. And Ma'am Jen, give a little wave so that the students can see you. And her team would also be able to help you out on those. So going back to Engineer Prospero's talk, it really, I think in terms of accessibility, it will really allow you to research better and get information better. So still part of synergy, I would have to say so, don't you think? I have another question on site before we proceed with the online question.
I would like to recognize the Assistant Chair for UMREC, yes, Sir Mark Paderan.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Hi, good afternoon, sir. I actually appreciate the informative presentation of those, it's like a summary of what has been since 2021 in our publication. And that's really good that because I was able to see what were the things that happened and what were published. And it's a good idea because you were able to present the things which are still lacking and the things that we still have to explore. Now, my question is, based on your presentation, I think since we have a very comprehensive offering of of courses, and I do believe that in the thesis of our students, there are researches, no, that may be aligned with the things which are needed by the universitas na ma-publish. What is our how do we motivate our students to try submitting their researches in universitas so that we can fill in the gap in the lacks in the publication?
That's a nice question.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Um, just look at our faces because we are guapo. No, no, no. I'm just joking. um, yeah, our team. I would like to. Oh, yeah. Anyway, so ano ba? One motivation is that I think we go back to the presentation lately. I don't know. I can't remember who was that. We just need to transfer if it's a thesis. If you are having thesis, if you're done with your thesis, one of the things that we are suggesting is that you start transferring it to the IMRAD format. Okay, because Universitas will be publishing papers, your papers, using the IMRAD format. We have an official template for that. You could message us through Google Chat. O, di ba? May Google Chat po tayo. Just remember that. So look for research@umac.edu.ph, not my personal chat, okay? And then you can ask for a copy of that template. Why publish with us? Well, portfolio, guys. Portfolio, di ba? Our journal is indexed. Hindi siya basta-basta na journal. We are one of the few indexed journals. Di ba? Local government, university lang, pero indexed. Ano ba yan? Di ba? So, it's part, if you want to build your portfolio, guys, start publishing. I think I'm not going to discriminate anyone if I say that it's not just the arts that need portfolio. Okay? It's not just the arts that need portfolio. It's not just the literature majors that need portfolio. It's also the other disciplines that need portfolio. Kasi when you get to the industry, you have something to show for. That's the start eh. You have something to show for. When the interviewer will ask you for what are you bringing to the table of their company, one of the things that you could say, well, I have publications, sir. I looked into this and that and explored solutions for this. And therefore, you could be assured that I have the skills to solve any problem. So, yun. Thank you very much.
I think there's a follow-up to that. Before I go and call Sir for the next question, apologies, he was the one who first communicated. But I just think it would be good to put context with what you mentioned, that we are an accredited, the university is an accredited journal, both by Andrew Gonzalez and PJ.
Yeah.
Right. And I think when he said we are a local government, local university for the government, but I think in contrast, because usually it's state universities that normally have these.
Yes.
So so just putting context to that, right?
Yes.
You could have your follow-up.
Diba? Grabe, parang ano.
Okay. Following the question that I raised, because that will be the future, maybe part of the future, that if our students will publish their researches in our universitas, then the things that we presented na kakulangan sa mga aspeto ng mga kategorya will be addressed.
Yes.
If our students will take part. And at the same time, that will be part of the dissemination of our research, that it will not end up with the hardbound copies,
Yeah.
but it will be disseminated through our research journal and online availability of it online. And my follow-up question is this. What is the direction of our CUR following that? If if there will be an influx of researches, because if there will all of the colleges, all of these best student researches will be submitted in universitas. What is our direction if we will have an influx of researches submitted to the CUR? Thank you.
Of course, I think we who are you pala, because I'm just new here, noticed when we called for paper for the 6th Research Congress and the upcoming volume and issues of Universitas, there's a separate policy for Research Congress and Universitas. So that's the new direction. It doesn't mean that you present in the 6th Research Congress, your paper will automatically be published in Universitas. Why? Because we still need to look into the quality of paper. It's not just quantity. Of course, we want to have more papers published so that our ranking, our points for ranking will go higher. Pero we are still concerned with quality. On the other hand, if you will be looking into the policy of a separate policy for Universitas, it means that we are still on the process, actually, of evaluating other papers for publication. We release journals, the issues of Universitas twice a year. So we have the September and November issue. But if we will be looking into that, I think that we are still on the process of reviewing the policies pa rin. Okay? There are some suggestions that are given to us. We heard them, and our director, I think, will be considering them. And the director is there. Sir.
If I may add something to what you just said, please don't get us wrong in thinking that we just wanted you to publish in Universitas. Although we're proud that we are indexed in Andrew Gonzalez Philippine Citation and also in Philippine e-journals, it doesn't mean that your only
Option.
that is your only option. In fact, we are exploring the possibility of having our journal to be indexed as well in international indexes, no? Like hopefully Scopus. But aside from that, we are also encouraging you to publish in Scopus Index journals. Okay, so we will be happy if you will publish there. In fact, we will even give you incentives. I think how much are we giving for Scopus? I think it's 20,000.
Q1, Q2 is 20,000.
20,000 if you are published there.
For Universitas, it's
Okay.
5,000.
And if in case there is really an influx of papers submitted to the CUR and they are worthy of publication, then we can come up with 4 issues
Yeah.
or a year or 5. I don't know. It doesn't. It should not really be a problem, I think. Thank you.
Yeah. Ready lang po kami sa UMREC at saka CUR for that. Yun.
Thank you, Professor De Los Santos and Sir Vince. Sorry, sir, and thank you for your patience, but yes, we may ask that question.
Good afternoon, Sir Hernante, Ma'am Camille, and Sir Vince. But before that, I was the one who approached you before that wanted to submit while you were brewing coffee in the office.
Yeah,
But
I remember.
I wasn't able because I got COVID. Anyway, I would like to ask, given that we are in a VUCA world, how that the impression that the Philippines is giving every time problems transpire, we tend to become reactive. But we fail to invest more in research. So the question boils down to how can the Philippines improve in its research endeavors so that it can be part of the global conversation in the VUCA world? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Off the record, actually. Yan. Second, I think we as local universities are doing it already. The good thing about, and when I stepped in the University of Makati, the first thing that blew my mind is actually the research culture which our director is trying to build. Okay, with the Makati City itself really trying to push us for doing research, that's actually a good sign. That's actually a good sign. And I think third, okay, so if we have politicians, one, two, if there is a local government unit like Makati City who supports research, and they even, oh, by the way, before I go to the third point, the second point is that the City of Makati actually approved our policy for incentives. Yeah, of the record. Yun. So, if you are in a local government unit in a university that actually pushes you for being proactive, because research is proactive. Being proactive for you seeking for solutions for real world problems, then take that opportunity to research. And third, for students here, we are hoping that we planted the seed of this culture. We are hoping that when you step out of this university, you would carry on. You would carry on that culture of lifelong learning po to di ba? Lifelong learning. Yes, UP and PUP and the other people from the state universities like me are known for, rah, rah, rah. But I think the culture here in Makati nourishes people who, yes, sees real world problem, yes. You're aware of that. And I believe by knowing how to research, you would know how to proactively solve those problems.
Yeah.
And therefore, the VUCA world will be transformed to another one. And I'll leave that point to the Vice President for Planning and Research
Yes.
presentation for tomorrow. Yes, sir.
I just want to say this, that our mayor, our beloved mayor, is really supportive of us whenever we do research. Okay? That is why I would like to grab this opportunity, although I'm not the speaker, tomorrow I will be, to announce to you that so far nobody is applying for the research grant, which has a budget approved by the mayor. So I'm still waiting up to the end of November for research proposals that can be utilized in different agencies in the city government of Makati or in the colleges in the University of Makati. Please submit it to us so that we can evaluate it. I can come up with a committee to approve it, hopefully, and then you can avail of at the maximum of 100,000, no? So if your proposal is approved by the committee, then you will be given assuming that you will get the maximum, you will be given the 20,000 so that you can work on your paper and finish it. And then the moment that you are able to finish and implement it for at least 6 months, and we see that it has really an impact on your chosen agency or college or whatever, then you will get the remaining 80%. So please avail that because I have like 5 slots for that. Thank you.
Sir,
Another reason to do research in UMak, incentives. Yes, sir.
Sir, it's not a follow-up, but I would just like to compliment on what you've said. Given what's going on in the world today, let's say, the Israeli-Palestinian war right now that
Yeah.
has been ensuing, there will be an effect, a drastic effect that will maybe in one way or another, direct or indirectly affect us. So that's why research is very important and it should be an imperative so that we don't, nangangapa lang tayo,
Yeah.
tapos nagsisisihan. So I commend UMak for the endeavor of building research as a stepping stone towards being part of a conversation. By the way, I'm Edric Espiritu. Sorry for not introducing myself this morning, Miss Camille. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Meron pa po
Thank
bang
you,
question?
sirs. Professor Rante and Sir Vince for answering the question. There is one online question, if I am correct. I am correct. Okay, here we go. Speaking of our very own universitas, is there any possibility that we can use all of those published research as our references, particularly for our HSU students? And how is it possible?
Yes, of course. Just follow the APA 7th edition standard for citation, in-text citation, and reference listing. And if you want a copy of Universitas, as I've said, you can go to our Odilio. You can ask the library, Learning Commons, for help or assistance in accessing it. Or go to our website, okay? Look for the links to PEJ, AGPCI, and the others where our journal is uploaded and published. If you will be citing sources from a research journal, the convention is last name, comma, first name, initial, dot, parenthesis, year of publication, which is 2022, dot, title of the article, dot, universitas, dot, what issue it is. For example, September issue is volume 10, issue 1. So 10, then parenthesis 1, and then you can go ahead and add the page number where the specific article is. For more information on APA citation, you can Google it actually. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that, Sir Vince. And at this point, please stay on stage. I would like to request Professor De Los Santos to please join us once again. And help us in awarding the Certificate of Appreciation to Vincent C. Barcelona for his invaluable knowledge imparted today as resource speaker during the 6th Research Congress with the theme Achieving Global Excellence Through Institutional Synergy, conducted on October 11 to 12, 2023 at the University of Makati, given this 11th day of October, although it says in your certificate that it's 12, signed Alex Sorsi Ramos, PhD, Cese Florante E. De Los Santos, RGC, and Maria Faye Nanette M. Cariaga, RPH, MSPH, PhD. Thank you very much once again. Right, so we're on to our last speaker for the day. So of course, we'd love to see you all tomorrow. Allow me to call on stage a dear colleague from the UMak Human Resources Management Office to introduce our last speaker, because you'll see why. It is also for the benefit of our Spanish attendees or friends of our next speaker who will be joining us online. Please welcome Mr. Alex Leon Andreon on stage.
Buenas tardes a todos. Good afternoon, everyone. Llamo la atención de mis amigos, sobre todo de Michael. Tengo el gusto, tengo el gusto presentarles al orador en español. Please allow me to introduce the speaker in Spanish. Y por último, tenemos el honor de presentarle al último orador de la sesión de hoy. Es una investigadora asociada de la Universidad de Deusto. Se especializa en educación superior, internacional, carrera y empleabilidad de graduado y diversidad e inclusión en la educación. Ella también se desempeñó como consultora de investigaciones para universidades y organizaciones en Europa y la región de Asia. Tiene un doctorado en educación en la Universidad de Deusto en España. Completó un máster conjunto Erasmus Mundus en aprendizaje permanente, política y gestión en el Instituto de Educación de la UCL en el Reino Unido y la Universidad de Deusto, y también tiene una licenciatura en terapia ocupacional de la Universidad de Filipinas en Manila. Vive en Bilbao, España. Seamos todos bienvenidos. Ahí sí presto a Nabo. Un fuerte aplauso para ella. Let's give her a big round of applause.
Hola. Muchísimas gracias. No sé si me... can you hear me? I hope that my audio works. Let me just
See?
share my screen.
Yes, Miss Icy,
Oh,
we
muchas
can-
gracias. Thank
We
you.
can hear you. Thank you.
Perfect.
And we can see
Thank
you too,
I
by the
don't-
way.
Oh, that's great. Okay, perfect. It's just that I'm trying to share my I'm doing a presenter view, but don't worry, I can just share my screen as usual. Let me see. Okay. Here you are. You don't have to see my notes. Okay. And present full screen. There you are. Okay, I hope it works now. Thank you so much for that presentation. Muchas gracias por la presentación. I'm Icy Fresno Anavo, as I was introduced. I'm currently a research associate at the University of Deusto. And first of all, I would like to thank the University of Makati for inviting me to speak to you today about literature reviews and how to turn it into a highly publishable scientific paper. I'm deeply honored to be here with you today and share what I know about this process. So I hope you find it useful. All right. So as you know, literature reviews are the bread and butter of researchers. This is something that's very close to my heart, and I'm quite happy with the discussions that you had before in the previous session with Sir Vincent about how to publish. And I really I'm happy about the fact that at the University of Makati you are encouraging this culture of research. I think it is very important for the Philippines to have this approach. I think research has a lot to contribute to the country and to the world. So we can start with literature reviews, for example. So we know that literature reviews can be done for many different reasons. So for example, you can do it to start looking into and having a deeper understanding of your topic or of a study that you're planning. You can also do it to identify gaps in your current understanding and probably be inspired about the sort of lines of research that you can explore. Aside from these, you can also do research to as a standalone piece of writing. So sometimes it can be a complementary task, or it can in itself be a piece of publication that you can put out to the world, and hopefully that other scholars and researchers can benefit from. So I want to start this presentation by showing you some statistics about acceptance rates in different in general. So of course, the acceptance rates for different journals will depend on many factors like the age of the journal, the scope, the size of the journal as well. But according to 2017 data by a study implemented by Elsevier, the average acceptance rate of journal manuscripts is 32%. So that roughly translates to 1 out of 3 publications being accepted. Of course, Elsevier is one of the major publishers, global publishers. This might not be the case for other publications, but just for us to have an idea that the tendency is actually skewed towards rejection rather than acceptance for some journals. And I think it is also our responsibility as researchers to put out a good quality piece of research. So how my experience is that when publishing any piece of literature or any scientific paper, we do experience some pitfalls and some challenges. And I just wanted to share with you what these main 4 ideas are, or 4 main pitfalls about why our literature review or our paper may fall short of being published. So the first one is no surprise. It's having an unclear or unfocused research question. So we know that in research, research questions, having a research question is our northern star. So it may happen that we start reading, reviewing the literature without a research question, and that's okay. It doesn't have to always start with a research question. Sometimes you discover it along the way. I'm sure you will relate with that. It's not always a linear path. But the problem is that sometimes we can finish or sort of have all of these literature reviews and not even get to that point. Sometimes we just go through hundreds of scientific papers, and then in the end, we just have sort of vague idea of what a research question is. And then when we start writing the paper, then we feel like we could have done it differently. So I think the first step is to really focus on a research question and have a clear direction and strategy. So that will be your main guide, so that everything else could fall into place. So that leads me to my next point, which is having a weak methodology. So a weak methodology is obviously unattractive to any journal or reviewers. So anyone can say, I reviewed the literature, but if you want to publish in reputable journals with a wide readership, you will have to be able to explain what you actually did and be able to justify the choices, the methodological choices that you made in the literature review. So the good news is you don't have to reinvent the wheel for this. So there are available resources to be able to identify what exact methods can I use if this is what I want, if this is where I want to go in my literature review. So that also brings me to the next point, the lack of system. So if you don't have a research question, you don't know, you will not be able to figure out a methodology to sort of do that literature review. And also sometimes the question will also clarify what is your objective. And if you have an objective and then more or less a good idea of your methodology, you will be able to design a system about how to go about the literature review. And the system is not just important in the actual implementation. We also have to think about the system being important in the actual reporting. So sometimes it might happen that, okay, I know more or less what steps I'm taking, but you're not recording what you're actually doing. And by the time you have to report, then you probably have forgotten about it, or there must have been a step that you did not include, which should be there. So having this clarity regarding the specific steps when you're searching, when you're screening, reviewing, and reporting results is very important. And last but not the least, I think that another pitfall is not having a clear idea of what the journal actually asks from us. So I think for some things such as publication, this type of activity, it's quite beneficial to work backwards. So we have to think about what is our end goal, where do we want to go, and then work backwards. So in this case, if we have an idea of the journal that we're targeting and what are the actual requirements for that journal, then we can sort of align our process with that journal to increase our odds of being accepted. So we will talk a bit more about that. I will show you an example in a bit how to do that, but just to make sure that when we look at the journal, we have to look both at the content requirements and the form requirements of the journal. So content requirements would entail like the scope of the journal, what sort of disciplines are accepted in that journal, or the focus of that journal, and then the form elements will be the length, the language of publication, and so on. So later we will have a look at these elements. Okay, so now how do we avoid these pitfalls? So the good thing about knowing what not to do is that it gives you important clues about what it is that we need to do to get over those challenges. So, all right. So I think one of the main ideas that I want to share with you today is first to look at what's out there. Okay, so this is also part of reviewing the literature in a sense, but Google is your friend. You can also have, if it's available, you can also look at specific databases from your university library to find a suitable journal. So we have to pay attention to the types of journals that actually publish literature reviews. Not all of them publish these types of papers. Some journals are more oriented towards empirical kind of work, where you actually have primary data like interviews, databases, focus group discussions. So these types of things, but then some of them are also open to publishing literature reviews. So I'm just going to show you this example, the Review of Education. It's a UK-based journal, but I think that since I'm in the education field as well, so I thought that I would share with you something that I know. So I wanted to know what types of pieces, for example, that this Review of Education actually publish. So when I look at this description in their page, so I see what they're publishing. So on the one hand, they publish empirical work, and this would also involve like findings from a study, even though they're partial or the final version of the study. So which is good. It's good to know because when we're doing research, sometimes it's good to also publish along the way and be able to share the partial findings, especially if it's an emerging topic or field. So that's good. But I'm more interested in these two. So it says that they accept research synthesis of empirical studies. So that is one clue that okay, this is looking good. And then they're also publishing original state-of-the-art reviews. So that is a clear indication that yes, I want to publish in this journal, and this is something that I will most likely have a chance of being accepted just because I'm within the scope of the journal. So when you're looking for journals, you don't have to just focus on one journal and then have laser focus on that. It's actually good to have different options, so you can go and probably prepare an Excel file of these different journals, 4 to 5 journals that you want to target, and then just put where are they indexed. Are they indexed in for example, Philippine journals that are indexed in the e-journals, or for example, are they indexed in Scopus or Web of Science? So those two databases are let's say the reference databases for these types of publications. So it's good to have an idea or an overview of these different journals and see what the scope is, the length of the paper, because sometimes it can happen that some journals would require you to just write 5,000 words, others are 10,000 or 15,000 words. So then you can, make a decision, an informed decision about which one you will want to publish on based on your available resources and time. Okay, so right, review of education seems like a good option for me personally. For example, in the field of research, if I want to publish an education literature review. So it's also helpful to note the journal's priorities. So obviously, this is something that will come later, but it's good to also have an idea of what they want from you as an author, so that you can include that and pay special attention to that as you implement your research literature, your literature review. So, for example, in the review of education, it says they want us to highlight the practical implications of our work, and also in a more general level, even though this is not what's being asked of the journal, you have to also think about what's in it for the people who will read this review. Like, what do I want them to get out of this review at the end? And what do I want to achieve with this review? So sometimes, obviously, there are more personal reasons. So you want to build a portfolio, you want to start publishing for your curriculum vitae, for professional growth, but also you also want that piece of research or publication to be useful for the wider community, right? So it's good to be asking these questions as well as you move through the steps of your literature review. So, as we said before, there are different reasons for us doing or carrying out literature reviews, and these are the different types according to a paper published by Xiao and Watson in 2017. And first, we have to ask ourselves, do we want to describe what is known in the literature, and do we want to identify the gaps in the current literature to sort of map what's out there and what we know in the field or in our topic? Then for that, you can do a narrative review or a scoping review, for example. So I'm just showing you now like the different types of review. So within a literature review, there are different subtypes. So that's the first. Do you want to describe? The second type is test. Do you want to test a hypothesis, for example? Then you can engage in a meta-analysis, or if it's more hybrid, so meta-analysis is more a quantitative approach. If you want to do a hybrid of qualitative and quantitative, then you might do a realist review. These are big words, perhaps, but don't worry because all of these are explained actually in this publication by Xiao and Watson, which I believe is open access. So if I will leave my details later, so if you want a copy of that, I can also share it. Extend. So do we want to extend the current knowledge? Perhaps we want to create new analytical concepts or build theory. Then you can do a literature review akin to thematic synthesis. So this is something that I did when I published my paper in 2019 about ethics in social sciences research. So it was published in an index journal, and what I did was to look into the Belmont report. Perhaps some of you will be familiar with it. So this is a seminal document that was used in the health sciences to sort of evaluate the ethical suitability of research. And it has 3 principles: respect, beneficence, and justice. And these 3, and I looked into different gray literature. So the documents that were set out by different, what do you call that? For example, some different associations, different research associations in different countries would put out these guidelines to sort of be able to review the ethical elements of their of different studies. And what I did was to look into these seminal documents that they have, put them all together, and synthesize what specific aspects of beneficence, justice, and respect are invoked in these documents. So that is an example of of extending the current knowledge. And then the last one is critique. So do you want to critically evaluate the quality of existing literature? So for that, you can do a critical review. All right. So if you can clarify the objective of of your review, you can make important decisions about methodology and have a systematic approach to searching, collecting, and reporting your findings. Okay. The next one is another tip to increase the chances of your literature, as I said before, being published is by taking a look at the journal requirements in terms of form and content. So the form you would have to look at the scope, and then for the form, you'll have to look at the length of the paper, the readability of the paper, and also the type of audience. So is it geared towards international audience or a more local audience for specific types of disciplines, or is it do they have a broader scope in terms of disciplinary backgrounds? So I just did a screenshot of this for the review of education for you to have an idea. It might not look like this for the other ones, but just good to know what sort of elements you have to look out for. Okay, so this part of thinking about the journal, trying to think of a strategy about, where can I increase my odds of being published, all of that is actually just the first step, right? So according to this paper by Xiao and Watson that I referenced before, there are 3 main steps to implementing a literature review. So first, obviously, plan. So this would include clarifying the research question, as I said before, which is one of the pitfalls, and then developing the review protocol. So this review protocol is just a document that you can use both internally if you're working with a team of other researchers to just get on the same page about the process. And if you also want to register your literature review, it can happen that you want to tell the other researchers around the world that, hey, I'm doing this literature review, and you also want to check whether someone else or another research team is doing that literature review. Then you can check certain databases for that. And the review protocol is one of the requirements for registering a literature review. And then after planning, I'll show you later some examples of what could go into that. So after you plan, obviously you implement. So under implement, you have specific sub-steps. So you search the literature, you screen for inclusion and eligibility, you extract the data, then you analyze and synthesize the data. And then lastly, you report. So this is where you actually engage in producing the written output. So you write your manuscript, you finalize it, and you put it out to the world. Okay. All right, so let's go to the first step, which is to plan. So as I said, this involves identifying a problem, formulating your problem, and clarifying your research question if you haven't already. So let's take an example. So this is a study from an actual scoping review published in the Review of Education in 2023. So suppose you're these researchers and you're interested in the mental health of first-generation students, or first-generation students meaning those who are first in their family to study at university. So obviously, based on what you want to achieve, then your research question will change. So let's look at this. If you want to describe the aspects of mental health among first-generation students, your research question might look like this. So what types of mental health problems in first-generation students are discussed in literature? However, if you want it to be more of a testing approach to literature review, perhaps you already know what types of mental health problems there are among first-generation students. It has already been published before, but we don't know what strategies or interventions are effective in addressing those. Then you have this, your research question will look like this. What are the most effective strategies or interventions to improve the mental health of first-generation students? And then, obviously you will have to do a synthesis of the empirical body of work on this. Perhaps a meta-analysis will work for this. So you see, like just having a question and an objective, then you can sort of choose which approach or which methods to implement. formulating this research question, it's very important for it to be concise and easy to understand, not just for you, but also for other people. And it's also very important that we include some parameters to delimit the scope of our review. So, for example, we can't be, writing obviously, perhaps in the research question, it won't be as specific, but if we're looking at, for example, testing, so effective strategies or interventions. So we're looking at the effectiveness of specific interventions for mental health among first-generation students. So those elements in themselves would help you delimit the scope of your literature review, because otherwise you will find a sea of sources and it will be quite difficult to navigate and make the review feasible. So just for us to take note of that as well. All right, so also part of the planning stage, as I said before, is to design a review protocol. So for how you would like to go about this literature review. So one example of doing that, this is what is usually used when you're doing a systematic review and meta-analysis. So it's called the Prisma P checklist. So these are the recommended items to include when you're doing this type of work. So it might be a bit small, but usually it would include the title, the rationale for the and objectives of the review, in the introduction, for example, and then in the methods, you will include eligibility criteria, the information sources, your search strategy, etc. So this one will be helpful, not just in the planning stage, like in the actual development of the review protocol, as I'm saying now, but also in the reporting. So if you just want to see what it should look like when you report and what sort of elements you should include, then it's good to have to look into this Prisma P checklist. Okay, so because usually literature reviews, depending on the scope, it might be difficult for just one person to implement. That can also be possible if you have the time and if it's just a smaller project. Even if you're not saying that you're doing a systematic review, maybe it's more of a narrative review, just describing what is out there. It's still good to have a sort of system to be able to explain the steps that you took, and that really gives a good impression to the reviewers when you're able to justify methodologically your choices in the actual review. Okay. Let's see there. Okay, so here, after the planning stage, we now move to the implementation stage. So here we are now. And these are the steps that, as I said, were outlined in Xiao and Watson's study or paper. And we first start with a broad identification of the available sources, usually by title. So you go into the database, you identify the databases that you want to search, and then you use specific search terms, and then you look at the title, and usually the system itself will return a number of results, and usually you record that number here in this identification step. And then the next step is screening. So this is where you remove duplicates. When you're searching different databases, for example, Web of Science and Scopus, it might happen that there are overlaps or there are repetitions between these two. So this is the process where you remove the duplicates that you found, and then you would screen them by reviewing their abstract based on the inclusion criteria that you set before. So for example, you just want to include journal articles, not necessarily book or conference proceeding contributions. Perhaps you want to say that you only want to look into articles that are in English between 2020 to 2023, for example, and then also you have to justify why that length of time. So all of these things, you do that in the screening phase. And then once you screen them, then you'll have to also record how many you removed and how many were screened. And then they go to the eligibility step, which is now you read the full text. So before it's just the abstract, now you read the full text, and then you see, you compare them again against the inclusion and exclusion criteria, because sometimes it might seem like in the abstract, they're fine, but then when you read the full text, it's like it doesn't have the, the data that I need. So you remove additional papers from there. And then lastly, you decide on how many studies would be included. You record how many there are. And then if sometimes researchers here, if they feel, or if they think that there are seminal documents or reference documents that from their own expertise have not been identified in this, because this is a very systematic approach. It can be an advantage or disadvantage, because sometimes it's an advantage because obviously there's a system, but it can be a disadvantage because sometimes, because of like some technicalities, then the paper that you think is really important, in your field is not included. I mean, obviously that is not so, if this paper is, indexed and has been cited widely, then it should appear, but sometimes it can happen that it's not. So some researchers add them here using other sort of methods, and they can add example papers and be able to justify why they're included as well. Okay, so those are the 4 steps within implementation. Now, let's see, just go through the, okay. So now it's time to report. So after you implement and do all of these steps, you have to write the paper, or they can go hand in hand as well. So I'm just showing you an example of literature review, and it's a scoping review to be exact. So a scoping review falls within the describe type of literature review. And it was published, as I said, in the Review of Education journal. And when you're writing your findings, drafting an abstract like this is a good exercise to help you clarify your message, make sure it is coherent, and also provide a structure that you can follow in the expanded article. So usually it starts with, like setting the scene, why it's important, and then what the aim is, and then the findings more in general terms, and then what were the gaps that were highlighted, and then like some a sentence or two to close the abstract. Okay. And so what other things should you include in this last step? So as I said, when you report, you can also include specific figures or tables it's very important to be able to show the findings and also your method in a more visual way that really helps, rather than like all text and like really heavy text. So for example, in this example by Smith and McClellan that I said that was published, a scoping review that was published on mental health problems in first-generation university students, they added this figure of what was their search strategy. So the exact terms that they used in the databases to look for literature. So you see that there are like different or and, these Boolean operators that you can usually there are like specific conventions on how to search. And we don't have time to go into that, but just for you to know that this is something that you can do in the actual reporting, adding tables and figures. So many of us are already familiar with this because I suppose that some of you will have already had experience in writing a paper. Maybe some more experienced than others. So just to go through it very quickly. So usually you have an introduction, and in this introduction you set the scene, why it's important, what's the rationale for the literature review. You explain your research question and what are the objectives of the literature review. And then in the method, that's where you explain the inclusion-exclusion criteria, the specific databases that you use, the number of articles in each step, more like what was in the review protocol slide that I showed you before. So what those are. Usually the Prisma framework is used for this. So it's more like, so if you, let's just go back a little bit. So in this one, usually in systematic literature reviews, what you will see is that they will usually have a figure of this, but in the context of your own research. So yeah, you will have to fill it in. And I think there are also online tools that you can use for them to automatically generate this. You just need to fill in your the numbers, and then it will generate that figure for you. So yeah, that's possible as well. And then the findings, and then just to make sure that your findings, sometimes because it's a really long manuscript and you've gone through many steps, it's sometimes that's why it's very important to have this research question and the objectives, because then the findings should always, align with these research questions. And usually when you're being reviewed by, in a journal, your submission is being reviewed in a journal, this is one of the things that they're looking for, the coherence of the paper. Like, okay, you set out these objectives at the beginning. Were you able to, follow that through until the end? Because sometimes, as I said, you have specific research questions, and then in the findings, you perhaps talk about something different. So that can happen too. So just for us to double check that in the end, okay, we are answering the research questions. It's also good to include a limitation section, because then you will be able to recommend certain lines for future research, which is very important for other researchers as well if they want to continue with this work. And then you add a short summary and conclusion, and then you should also include, obviously, a list of references using the convention of the journal. So usually, or more commonly in my field, at least, you use the APA convention. And then you include the appendices. So this is where you add any additional tables or some materials that you use to extract the data, any extra figures that you used to fill in when you're extracting the data from the literature. Okay. So to summarize, bear with me, 2 more minutes. So as we said, here are the 4 pitfalls we identified before. You don't have a clear research question. As a result, you don't have a strong methodology, which will, which you will be penalized for when you submit and when your review gets reviewed in these journals. You don't have a system. You don't have a clarity of what are the specific steps, and that you will have to record each step so that you're able to report them well when you're writing the manuscript. And you don't have a good idea of where this work can be published and what is actually required of me as an author to publish this. And so, because we know what we don't want to do, we know what we can do, right? So first, we find a suitable journal and align our review with it using actual published articles as examples. So we decide on the objective of our review to help us choose the methods that we'll employ. Do we want to describe? Do we want to test? Do we want to expand the current knowledge? Do we want to critique the quality of this body of literature? And then we also need to clarify a research question, which will then guide our analysis and findings, and have a framework, which is the 3-step process that I explained before, which is plan, implement, and report. So with that, again, I'd like to thank the University of Makati for this invitation, and I hope you found this useful. And yeah, if you have any questions, well, this is the time to do that. So thank you so much again.
Thank you very much, Ms. Icy, for that rather comprehensive presentation. Definitely something we could review time and again whenever we'd like to do our literature review, and eventually make it systematic and pass it as a paper to universitas even. So in fact, as we were listening to you earlier, one of the things that Sir Vincent Barcelona mentioned is that he may not have really gone through the universitas articles yet in terms of methodology, but top of mind, and Professor De Los Santos, you can correct us if we're wrong, but so far, that's one of the gaps identified. We still have yet to receive a paper from the university that's done the systematic review method. So maybe a little challenge for our students and faculty to do that. Right, so do we have questions that we could ask? Okay, Professor De Los Santos has one.
Yeah, good afternoon, IC, or good morning.
Good
I think
afternoon,
it's
Professor.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Yes, it's still morning here in
I
Spain.
know. Yes. First of all, I would like to thank you personally, or virtually at least, for saying yes to my first cousin, Carlo Estadilla. Thank you so much. I'm really grateful for that. No? And then this is not really a question.
Thank you to you for invitation.
Yeah. But I would like to ask if it is possible, if you can provide us as well with a copy of your, what do you call this, the paper that you did about Belmont report on ethical. Is it all
Yes.
right if I could request a copy of that? Yeah.
Of course.
Okay.
Yes, it's open access as well. Yes,
Yeah, thank
definitely.
you
I
so
will.
much. And then the third one is, what is this? I'm just wondering if it is possible as well to invite you as one of our peer reviewers in our journal, because I am the editor-in-chief of that journal. And I would like, if it is possible, to invite you as well to be one of the peer reviewers. Thank you so much.
Of course. Yes, I'll be happy to. Yes, definitely. Count me in. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor De Los Santos. And Miss Icy, thank you for accepting the invitation as well to be one of the peer reviewers
you.
for the university.
Of course.
Other questions we might have? So please, for on-site audience, the left and the right microphones, or if you'd like to take this one right in the center, feel free. Also, in joining our participants online, you could also type it in the chat box, and our tech team will flash it on screen. Okay, for the meantime, no questions yet. Perhaps, Ms. Icy, it's indicative in a way that they're still processing a lot of the things that you may have mentioned earlier. You have to admit, it is a lot to take in one session, and just a few minutes at that. But in a way, to concur with what Professor De Los Santos said, thank you for agreeing to be one of the peer reviewers. And I think after this, what you will identify, Professor De Los Santos, is that we probably would need more sessions on systematic review, because as I discussed earlier with one of the speakers, Sir Vincent Barcelona, it's actually one of the gaps yet, more or less in terms of research that we've identified, something we could work with, and to continue the whole synergy theme. We'd love to hear more from you about it, because we're still taking the baby steps, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, but I must commend you as well for taking this on. You know, systematic review is not an easy challenge. You know, you might find that even sometimes those who have finished their PhD might not have done a systematic review as such, because there's very specific steps to be taken if you were to declare that it's a systematic review. But I guess my general message here is for us not to be scared about this process. It is meticulous, it is rigorous, but it's also doable. And I think that is the beauty of having such a specific protocol, because then you have this map and you just follow the map and you get to your destination, you know? And it's also practice. I think it's not something that you probably will do from the very beginning perfectly, but I guess for literature reviews, you can start with a smaller type of review, perhaps a more descriptive type. So when I talk about the descriptive type, such as the narrative review, scoping review, they're less, let's say, demanding in terms of like, okay, you will have to be able to check all these steps for you to be able to say that you did that. There's more space for well, I wouldn't want to say error, but more space for exploration. So, and it's more open in that sense. You really have a lot of space to be able to specify what types of review of sources you would want to include in the review. So my recommendation is to start with the smaller ones. If you feel like, okay, this is too big of a task, you break it down into smaller steps or make it smaller, a smaller project. So a narrative review would be a good one. I think, as you said before, to your point about, you know, this methodological gap, I think what I'm also seeing is that sometimes we go through this literature review because it's for us, you know, it's something that we need for our own study. And perhaps this is maybe publishing the literature review is more of an afterthought. but knowing that there is a system that we can follow. And in the end, just in case we want to publish it at one point, it's always a good idea to have a system. It's always a good idea to record your steps. What did you do? Because the idea is for not just for you to be able to, show that, okay, there is rigor in this. And it's not just a show, but there is actually rigor in this, but also for other researchers to be able to follow the same steps. Imagine they want to do a similar literature review. Then if you're able to identify these steps, you're not only increasing your chances in reporting these steps, you're not only increasing your chances of being accepted, but also helping other researchers to go through the same process. So I think, yeah, it's this methodological gap is this gap in having robust methodology is there. We have to acknowledge it, but it's good that we are acknowledging it so we know how to overcome it. So yeah, thank you so much for that.
Our
And yes,
hands as we
definitely open.
endeavor for the baby steps, so to speak.
Yes, baby steps are good.
So you will accept this online, but for the benefit of everyone, at this point, we'd like to also present to you our certificate of appreciation. So, sorry, there is still one more. Oh, okay, please forgive me. Please go ahead, sir.
Good afternoon. So, Travis Gabriel from CGP. So,
Hello,
I was
Gabriel.
listening earlier about significance for a paper to be published in a major. So, ma'am, for me, the question that I have in mind, so, how significant is it for a student that a published paper be given in a major publication? That the publication will be given internationally. How significant is it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question. I think you can look at that in different levels. So obviously you have the more micro level, significant for your own professional, path, and also at the macro level, like how significant is it to other people, and how that can can help improve the world through knowledge. So obviously the the more when you're looking into publishing, my take is that also there's a different conversation to have. The impact of the journal, whether it's indexed, all of this um, will have an effect on how discoverable your paper is. So if it's open access as well. So it's important to think about these, because also if you want to perhaps do a PhD or a postdoc in the future, one of the things that they will look into is that how, where did you publish your papers? That's one. And if you want to get into a competitive, sort of program, then that's one of the things that they will look into. So it's good to always target that. That being said, I think that you will have to also do baby steps, right? Like, okay, what is doable now? Because some research or one research is always better than no research, right? So you can do that as like practice to sort of look at, I think in the resources that you have now, where can I publish? And with this publication, what sort of experience can I take out of it? And so that's in the more micro level. So the macro level is literature reviews like this, for example, systematic literature reviews are really important when, for example, let's say COVID or other big things that we've experienced in here. For example, specific treatment for specific illnesses. So these types of things, for example, in the medical field, it's very important to look into these systematic reviews for you to know what is actually effective. So that is one of the significant contributions of looking into these literature reviews. So if you have a methodologically rigorous literature review, that can have an effect on on the practices and the sort of choices that people will make in the future. Because if you have evidence that works, or much has been said but there's really no evidence about how it works, then that that will obviously have an effect on our lives, on our everyday lives, depending on whether it's a medical treatment or even nutrition, for example. Like people say, okay, don't eat this and that. Okay, so or you have to take this supplement. So, but what is the evidence for that? So these types of the systematic literature reviews are the ones that actually give that clue to us. So that's why it's significant in that sense. So that's the long-winded answer. My short answer is it's significant for you as a student because that will help you progress in your, and whether it's depending on what you want to achieve in life and what your career path, ideal career path is. And at the macro level, what does this literature review aim to contribute to in the world?
I'll take note of that po. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gabrielle. Good luck.
Hola, buenos dias, ma'am. So my name is Amy B. Martezo. I am also from the College of Governance and Public Policy. So my question is, I was just curious, based on the 2017 data, the average acceptance rate of journal manuscripts for the Elsevier, one of the major publishers, and the acceptance rate was about 32%, and the rejected rate of the journal manuscripts is much bigger. So I would like to ask, what is one of the major reasons why there are rejected journal manuscripts?
Mhm.
Yes.
Good question. Hola, buenos dias. Buenas tardes. So, Amibi, I don't know if I said your name right. Yeah. So, there are many different reasons for paper being rejected. So that statistic is not specific to literature reviews, nor I wouldn't say that it would represent the wider. So just the caveat there. But I wanted to know I wanted to share some statistics with you that will more or less drive the message home that there we have this responsibility of making our research high quality. And just the acceptance part is a bonus. But as to your point, one of the things that I see um, could be grounds for being rejected, because usually when you apply to be submitted to these like journals with like index journals and high impact factor, usually it would go through the first step, which is like a screening phase where they will look into the relevance of your paper in relation to the journal. So sometimes you can save yourself some heartache because from the very first month you submit your paper and they say we don't see that it's relevant to our journal. So that's one. You have to be strategic about your choice of the journal. You can just choose anything and then think, oh, okay, this is in education and I will submit here because I did something related to education. Some journals are more broad in scope, some are very specific. You have to think about whether my paper is more of an empirical kind of work, or is it more a conceptual or a review type of work? Then you have to, as I said before in the presentation, you have to specifically target those journals that are more aligned with the type of paper that you're trying to publish. So that's one. And then when it goes through that first step, then they will go through the full review. And usually one will be the coherence. Sometimes the research question does not align with with the findings. You'll be surprised because that happens more often than we would like to think. And then sometimes also like in terms of readability, it's very important that when you read the article, it flows naturally, and you don't have to use big words. I think that's also one of the things you'll have to try to simplify and make it clear, but at the same time pleasant to read. And also methodological flaws or methodological gaps. I think you pointed that out again also in the previous comments. So if there's no methodology, especially for literature reviews, as I said, you can say I did a literature review, but you have to be able to report the steps that you took. What analytical steps or analytical approaches did you use? it's good to have a name for the specific review that you're doing. Instead of just saying literature review, I did a narrative review according to Xiao and Watson 2019. And you describe a narrative review is blah blah blah. It aims to describe blah blah blah. Or if you're doing a different sort of thing, then you have to try to find a name for that. There is a name for that, and then you describe that based on that, and then you follow the steps that's usually involved in that type of literature review. So I think those three things: the relevance, the coherence, the relevance in relation to the journal, the coherence of the paper itself, that the research question is being answered by the findings, and the third one is the methodological rigor and having a name for the method that you're using, and being able to report that correctly in the publication. So yeah, thank you.
Muchas gracias, ma'am.
Muchas gracias a ti.
Good afternoon po, Miss Ice.
Good afternoon.
Po.
Afternoon, ma'am.
Miss Lorna Esquivel from the College of Arts and Letters. I just have two things. Number one, comment po. And I would like to congratulate you for that very impactful and very comprehensive discussion of systematic review, literature review. In the University of
Thank
Makati,
you.
this is not actually new. I think we have had systematic reviews efforts done in some of our colleges. It's just that maybe it was not published or it wasn't like well known by everyone. But your discussion, really, your sharing is very helpful to us. It's actually very inspiring. Like personally for me, I would like to try to do one okay,
Go
in
for
the
it.
future. Yes, given the chance. So that's why I also would like to say muy bien, gracias for that.
Muchas gracias.
And thank you, of course, for saying yes to be one of our peer reviewers. As also, I'm a
Yes.
part of the UMak Research Ethics Committee. And the second thing that I would like to do is to ask you a question. What's your take on the idea of research endeavor passing through a research ethics committee screening? Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Ma'am Lorna, for that. Yes, first of all, I'm so happy that you found it useful. I really wanted to share what my experience has been in my career, relatively short career in research, on doing systematic literature reviews. To your point about ethics, I think this is very important, at least so two things. I think one would be, again, your personal responsibility as a researcher to make sure that, that we're doing research in an ethical way, in a culturally sensitive way, that we are not exploiting the participants. We're not in a relationship with the participants in such that we're in an exploitative way, but more of a mutually beneficial ways. I guess that speaks to the Belmont report that I told you before about this paper that I had. I'd be happy to share that. So one is that, and then the other is the more, let's say, technical, formal, ethical review process. I always think that it's a good practice, and more I think, for especially in my experience in European projects, or it's important that you're able to have this clearance from the institutional review board, just to have experts in the field who are able to say or to point out some blind spots in how you are doing your research. What I would say is that sometimes it can happen that it can become so bureaucratic. That's one of the pitfalls there, right? It can become so bureaucratic that it sort of defeats the purpose, because then it takes a long time, and then you need to collect the data, or you need to do it to make it to do this or implement this project within a shorter frame of time, and then you don't get to do it, or it gets delayed and all that. So I think there has to be a balance there. I think institutional review boards are important. They have to go through that process just to be able to shine a light on these blind spots and make sure that we are doing everything in an ethical way. but also be able to balance that with the with the sensitivity of the data that we're dealing with. What are the risks to this population that we're working with in this research, and where the risks are lower, I think the demands should also be commensurate to that. And when the risk is higher, when we're working with vulnerable groups, with a possible stigmatization, when some sort of data, when there's a data breach and then it can destroy the lives, the livelihoods of people, then the more rigorous this review should be. But yes, short answer, yes to institutional review boards, but balance it out with bureaucracy and sensitivity of data.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Ma'am Lorna, for that question.
Muchas gracias po. I am Beatrice Benedicto from the College of Science. And first of all, I would like to say thank you, ma'am, because it's the first time I have attended this type of congress, and your presentation was really informative for me as I was taking notes.
Oh, okay.
So the
I can also
question
send a PowerPoint if needed.
Thank you. The question I would like to ask is, what could you suggest for for the beginners like me to be able to improve or have the ability to create quality literature review?
Thank you, Beatrice. Good question. Yes, I think that's always the question, right? We always have to start somewhere, right? We can't just go and do a systematic literature review alone right now. So I don't know what where you are in your educational journey, like what year you are, or you're doing, which year you are. But definitely one of the things that I would like to, like an easy win, a low-hanging fruit, is to look at journals and look at published papers. Okay, so instead of you just thinking about, oh, is this right? What should I do? Should I read more? That's good, but I would suggest just go directly to those success stories. What did they do? What does their paper look like? And how can I get to that? We don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's already there. We just have to discover what it looks like. So if you have these examples of papers that have been published and you think that, oh, this paper is actually relevant to what I'm trying to do as well, or they're quite similar, then you have some clues, very important clues as to how to get there. So that's one. The second is literature review of literature review. So if you want to do a literature review, you have to also look into what are these types of literature review. And I think I gave that before. Like when you want to, the easier, let's say for beginners, for beginner researchers, will be to do a narrative review. So this is more similar to our the more common one that we do when we're writing, let's say, an assignment for a specific subject, okay, like a very small project. So you usually have an introduction, you have a literature review, and then your findings. So that part is the most similar to a narrative review. But with narrative reviews, you also have to say, sometimes we say we reviewed relevant literature on this, but you have to say which databases you searched. Did you use Google for that? Well, I don't know whether Google, I mean, we use Google all the time, right? That's fine. We don't have to say that we searched Google, but you also have to think, what is a more rigorous way of reporting this? And that also shows you like, okay, maybe I can do this in a more rigorous way. Maybe you can say, I searched Google Scholar. Google Scholar could be more, but if that's more, I think, for gray literature, if you want. Or Scopus, usually Scopus and Web of Science. So if you want to start somewhere, I would say Scopus would be a good database. Or you can say, I searched the database of our university library. Okay, and then say that. But if you can identify a specific database that you searched, what specific search terms did you use, and how many papers you reviewed, I think that can be, an initial step for a narrative review. And then you sort of describe the findings. With a narrative review, you don't really have to show like this flow and all that, but just finding specific elements that you want to report. like the databases, the search terms that you used, and how many papers did you review in the end, then that I think would be a good step towards, making your process more rigorous. And then the findings, obviously, you have different approaches to that. You can sort the items by theme. Like if you have a research question about what has been said, what are the factors affecting the mental health of first generation university students? So the factors could be institutional, specific to the classroom, gender factors. So you have these types of things, and if you can use them as categories to sort of analyze, okay, if my question is what are the factors, what in this body of literature that I have refer to gender factors, refer to institutional factors, refer to that, and with these categories you can now report your results. So I hope that is useful. But good luck. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I can share my email below. Thank you, Beatrice. Good luck with everything. And I really want to encourage you to go for it.
Thank you once again, Miss Icy, for willingly answering all those questions. I think that would be the last question for you this afternoon. But you're right. Do share your contact details. I'm sure they would love to ask you directly. Or for those of us who would like to give the questions to CUR, they'd be more than happy to also give it to Miss Icy. I think I heard some clapping as well when you said you'll share the PowerPoint. Yay! See, I heard that again.
Yes,
So,
yes, I
thank
will
you
share the
so
PowerPoint. No
much.
problem.
And
Thank you.
just would like to also mention this is the nice thing about events like this, because I was talking to Sir Vince about a gap that we've not done systematic review yet as a paper, but I did get messages that told us that, hey, we've actually done it before. It may not, it may be different from what you presented earlier, or maybe one of the 4 types you presented earlier, but it's definitely been done by the students before. So hooray, actually, to our students. They actually endeavored to do it. That's right, because it's actually
Good.
quite challenging to do so. But nonetheless, it's still important to get more ideas or more mentorship, so to speak, from you, Ms. Icy, since you've done it for a considerable time. Thank you so much. Perhaps it's safe
Thank
to
you so
really do
much.
the certificate of appreciation this time. Correct? Correct. Okay, so Ms. Icy, once again, we are giving to you the certificate of appreciation for your invaluable knowledge, for the invaluable knowledge imparted as resource speaker during the 6th Research Congress with the theme Achieving Global Excellence Through Institutional Synergy, conducted on October 11 to 12, 2023 at the University of Makati, given this 11th day of October 2023. Signed, Elixir C. Ramos, PhD, CESE, Florante E. de los Santos, RGC, and Maria Faye Nanette M. Cariaga, RPH, MSPH, PhD. Once again, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everyone. We'll be in touch.
All right, so this afternoon, at this point, I'll call on our second rapporteur from the College of Tourism and Hospitality Management of the University of Makati, also a member of UMREC. Please help me welcome Professor Jefferson S. Marcelo.
A pleasant afternoon to each and everyone. So I am Professor Jefferson Marcelo from the Faculty of the College of Tourism and Hospitality Management. And it's my great honor to be your rapporteur for the second part of our research forum for the 6th University Research Congress, of course, organized by the Center for University Research. So we were able to listen in the first part of our seminar session, in which we gain insights and learn so much about the comprehensive topics, focusing on heritage writing, the unwavering persistence in unlocking the dissemination of vital knowledge from our own studies, and a very engaging and important discussion about research proposal writing coming from our dynamic speakers in the field of research and other disciplines. And at this juncture, we were able to prepare the synthesis of the reflective discussions and insights from the second set of our research speaker for this afternoon, who are generously provide a lot of knowledge and their best practices related to their assigned topics. We're so grateful to learn from these experts from the second section of our research forum discussion, which primarily provide additional inputs on how every faculty members and even the student embrace the global excellence in producing high impact and scholastic research paper, and a sustainability in developing research output that address the needs of the university, our stakeholders, and the global community. In our first speaker, which presented the institution in the Philippines, who mostly dominating the world ranking, which is coming from prestigious schools and universities all over the Philippines. Our first speaker, Dr. Eliseo, presented also how ranking is very important in empowering the educational landscape of the university, not only national, but of course, in a global education landscape. He mentioned the different ranking bodies in the universities that every university is using nowadays. He mentioned the different criteria which is being used in order to be included in the world ranking, such as in teaching, industry collaboration and involvement, international outlook, and most importantly, our research environment and the quality of research that we are producing for our university. On the other hand, he also highlights the impact ranking with greater intervention in sustainable development goals of every research output that we are producing. Dr. Eliseo also mentioned or shared that our capability to produce research paper would enable us to qualify for university ranking from different ranking bodies all over the country. There is a good correlation between quantity and quality of research being produced. As you continue to increase the paper, the quantity is also increases. We've learned as well a lot of things about how we can navigate the World University Ranking as a full-fledged researcher or scientist, which presented by our speaker. And due to the formulation of the International University Ranking, Dr. Eliseo mentioned that many universities as well aim to have high international ranking in addition to high domestic academic reputation and rankings. Universities use excellent university ranking to attract international students, and importantly, these high rankings enable university to gain global recognition through their academics, draw more financial resources, and invite famous international scholars to teach, and this ranking enhanced the reputation of the university at home or abroad for sustainable development. With this, as Dr. Eliseo concluded his part of the presentation, he highlighted the main things that every university must take in consideration in making sure to be included in the world ranking. Of course, number one, universities should have the rationale in consciously joining ranking bodies. Universities should be cognizant of the rules and guidelines of the ranking bodies. And more importantly, research is the main criterion in the ranking and should be the major focus of the university. This challenge all faculty and students of our university to engage, to collaborate, and to have partnership with each and everyone in producing a high scholastic research paper. On the other hand, from our second resource speaker, Mr. Vincent Barcelona, discussed the overview and landscape on how the research of our university was able to make it from the past until to the present. He were able to present the different papers that was able to produce, publish from the past, and at the same time that will be going to present by tomorrow. So there are certain learnings that we gain from the past, which are rethinking academics, rethinking our students, and rethinking community extensions, which basically these three indicators have been used to furtherly improve the gap that we really needed to address in our university. And most of the papers that we're going to see here, will be going to present by tomorrow. And on our third speaker, which is about Ms. Anabo, which presented the systematic process on how can we able to look for a literature in our papers and turn it into a scholastic research paper output using the peer-reviewed research journal templates and the inputs that she were able to share with us. She highlighted the importance of consistency, coherence, and the evidence-based literature discussion that will support the objectives of our study. She presented the average acceptance rates of a journal manuscript that we usually deal in terms of publication. Some of the pitfalls in literature review, which about the unclear scope and the objectives of the research paper that we are conducting or producing, a weak methodology, a lack of system, and a mismatch between the review and the journal. She was also shared with us a lot of things on how can we able to avoid these pitfalls. And most of the time, the main reason or primary solution is about finding a suitable journal. And that journal will be aligned to what your research paper is all about. The second is about noting the journal priorities on what they want to be changed or to be improved in your paper, and consider your target journals from the content requirement. Our speaker also mentioned the different literature reviews that you may able to utilize in terms of improving your research paper for possible publication in a peer-reviewed journal that we are now utilizing here in our university, and in the future, you may able to take advantage with. Ms. Anabo also presented the systematic process on how can we able to look for a literature review in our papers and turn it into a scholastic research paper. With this, the authors of the manuscript treat writing a literature review as a routine work or a mere formality, but a seasoned one knows the purpose and importance of a well-written literature review. Since it is one of the basic needs for research at any level, it should be done vigilantly. Only then the reader will know the basic of research and have not been neglected. The aim of any literature review is to summarize and synthesize the arguments and ideas of existing knowledge in a particular field without adding any contribution. The end of an experience is a great time to reflect on what we have learned from our session from morning until this afternoon. And with every research experience that we gain for today, it's more about the type of environment you enjoy being in. And it's about our university is aiming to be a globally excellent in producing sustainable and highly useful research paper, not only for the institution, but for our stakeholders. With this, that's the end of our second session of our research forum discussion. Thank you, and we hope that you have enjoyed this session.
Thank you very much, Professor Jeff Marcelo. The synthesis is usually one of the toughest tasks because you have to ensure that you've heard each and every speaker and get all the salient points. But thank you for doing that. And that ends day one, everybody. Thank you so much for staying on and being here until the end, until our synthesis, in fact. But you will be rewarded with more refreshments. So for those who are here on site, please just proceed outside for some more coffee and snacks or perhaps donuts. Just a little appeal to everyone. We came in and you know, with a rather clean and beautiful environment. I hope we could leave it that way. And also thanking our sponsors for our snacks and refreshments, the Philippine Consortium, the leading provider of academic software like InVivo, Wolfram Mathematica, eViews, Stata, Excel Stat, and Cita V. The Office of the Vice President for Planning and Research for our vitamins for this afternoon, and also for the OVPPA, or Vice President for Academic Affairs, for their Zoom link. Likewise to the CUR for the refreshments this afternoon. Thank you very much. See you all tomorrow. Sorry, also your evaluation forms should be, for those who are on site, it should be, oh, sorry, all the evaluation forms. In case you're looking for one, it will be given tomorrow after we conclude the second session. Thank you all so much. Enjoy your snacks.
Carl, Vincent, and Camille, and the rest of Arjun and RJ, JR, RJ.